The young man points to a speck of dust and demands attention. The girl, looking tired, continues cleaning without answering. He corrects her, saying that the stain is in the wrong place, and she thinks to herself irritably that if the dust bothers him so much, he should clean it up himself. The guy is surprised by her words, and the girl wonders where he gets such good hearing. He demands that she repeat what she said, and the girl understands that if she doesn't answer, something unpleasant might happen. She indignantly declares that her name is not Hei, but Mia. A young man with a cold expression on his face sarcastically remarks that the reason for the poor cleaning was her eyesight. The girl indignantly replies that he himself constantly forgets her name, despite his reproaches. In a fit of irritation, she glances at the man, and he notes with surprise that he was mistaken about her character. The man cautiously asks again what she just said, and the girl hastily makes excuses. The girl in despair wonders how her life came to this. The next shot shows another girl who is tiredly riding on a crowded bus to work, feeling like a slave to the company. One day, having invested all her luck in a single chance, the girl wins an apartment in the lottery. Filled with anticipation, she flies on the wings of happiness to make a deposit. Suddenly, she is overcome with despair and shock because what is happening seems impossible. She finds herself in the body of Mia Fortuna. At first, she thinks it's a happy rebirth into a romantic fantasy world, but she realizes that Mia Fortuna is an ordinary girl with a plain appearance. Compared to other heroes with magical abilities, her own abilities seem unremarkable. The girl's family turns out to be quite ordinary, and her outfit makes it clear that she is a commoner. No one around her reminds her of characters from famous stories, and she begins to doubt that she is the heroine of any novel at all. Having come to terms with the circumstances, she decides to live quietly and enjoy her second life with her grandfather. Grandfather always repeated that cattle's place is in the village, and people's place is in the capital. After his death, taking the inheritance and her savings, she sets off for the capital, sadly remembering that they were supposed to go together. Sitting on a cart on the way to a new city, she tries to maintain her spirit. In the capital of Londinium, a girl comes to a real estate agency. The agent asks her about her budget, and she names a figure of about 50 million giveaways, taking into account the loan. The agent notes that it's not that much, but can still show her a few options. The girl enthusiastically agrees to look at the house first. They are shown the first house, a bright mansion with a spacious terrace. The agent explains that this is a noble mansion, built 50 years ago and recently completely renovated, and the girl is surprised that it costs exactly that amount. The agent warns that the house is so big that it's easy to get lost in it, and the girl wonders if this mansion is compensation for her previous failures. They are led into one of the rooms, where a gloomy atmosphere reigns and many strange objects appear. The girl looks around the room in horror, not believing that people could actually live here. The agent explains that this part of the house is not used by the owner, which is why the price of the house is especially low, and the girl notices frightening graffiti on the walls. The agent adds that the strange object in the room is supposedly a bed, a gift for new tenants, and the girl is shocked by such a bonus. She anxiously inquires about the fate of the previous tenants, and the agent calmly confirms that he knows about it. The agent, smiling, assures her that all the previous tenants of this place have succeeded and moved away, but the girl secretly doesn't believe his words. She admits that the atmosphere in the house is too scary and asks to see another option, and the agent concludes that the atmosphere is important to her. The agent promises that she will definitely like the second house, and they go there together. Upon arrival at the new house, the girl notes with relief that at least from the outside it looks normal. She looks around the house doubtfully, without showing any emotion. Inside, the girl feels uneasy, noticing that her body is literally retreating back because the place seems strange. The agent assures that the interior is designed in a refined, artistic postmodern style. The girl notes with annoyance that she would just like a normal house and not something strange. The agent reminds us that for that price, it's difficult to find even the options he's already shown us in the capital. She insists that the house must be habitable no matter what. The agent agrees and promises to show the latest version. The girl prays with hope that this house will turn out to be ordinary and is even ready to agree to a studio. The girl looks with admiration at the majestic building of the mansion, amazed by its scale and beauty. Inside, she discovers that it is a former feudal lord's estate with a huge courtyard and many rooms. The agent notes that the authentic antique furnishings give the place a special charm. The girl is surprised when she learns that she doesn't even need to pay for this house, she just needs to formalize the transfer of ownership. However, the agent says that there are conditions: the house must be kept perfectly clean, without a speck of dust. The second condition is the need to sign a lifetime contract, which strictly prohibits eviction. The girl is at a loss to understand that she will not be able to leave this huge house until she dies, and the thought of constant cleaning seems like a real nightmare to her. She learns that she will be paid a monthly allowance of 4 million giva for the upkeep of the house, since the mansion is recognized as a cultural asset. Without hesitation, she agrees to the proposed conditions. The agent hands her the papers and asks her to sign to formalize the deal. The girl thinks that the conditions seem suspiciously good, but compared to other options, this house is much better, so she decides to sign the contract. She signs with delight, feeling like a winner in a lottery where the main prize is a secure life. The contract is signed, and the girl happily receives the documents in her hands. The agent wishes her luck with a slight smile. She ponders his words with surprise, not fully understanding their meaning. Watching the agent go, the girl remains alone at the gate of her new home, thinking that they really did wish her good luck. The girl puts the heavy suitcase on the floor with difficulty, feeling tired from the journey. She, wiping her forehead, finally reaches the big house and sighs with relief. Looking around, she notices that there are indeed a lot of rooms in the mansion, and she understands that it will be difficult to clean everything alone. She is considering hiring a housekeeper, as her income now stands at 4 million GV. Deciding to try and cope on her own, she falls onto the sofa with a smile to rest a bit. She plans to clean her room first, but after looking at the moon, she decides to go to bed early. The girl decides that cleaning can wait until the morning and falls asleep on the sofa with relief. She slowly falls asleep, her gaze becoming absent-minded and tired. Half asleep, she begins to hear someone's voice but cannot understand who it is. A man in a white uniform appears above her, and she realizes that she hears a voice, but she cannot move. The man is outraged that she is sleeping in an untidy house, and the girl panics and thinks that she has sleep paralysis. The man warns her that if she doesn't start cleaning tomorrow, there will be consequences, and the girl mentally asks him to let her go first before lecturing her. The suitcases fall to the floor with a crash, and the girl thinks in horror about the ghost. She screams indignantly, demanding not to touch other people's things without permission. Looking around, she notices that there is no one in the room. The girl decides that she simply dreamed this whole strange situation because she was tired. She notices that the suitcases are lying exactly the same as in the dream, and begins to doubt the reality of what is happening. In the end, she convinces herself that she simply left them like that, and pushes away the disturbing thoughts. The girl, stretching after waking up early, decides to do some cleaning. She ponders where to start and thinks about doing the laundry, unaware that a ghostly figure is watching her. Standing in a barrel of water, she is surprised at how dirty the water is after washing. Suddenly, someone touches her back and she feels a chill of fear. The girl turns around in fear, trying to understand who just touched her. Having finished her work, she sits down to rest, but the mysterious hand appears next to her again. The girl sighs with relief, deciding to rest a little after work, but at that moment a ghostly hand reaches towards the back of the chair. Suddenly, the chair moves sharply to the side, and the girl falls to the floor in fright, not understanding what is happening. Evening falls on the mansion, filling it with the golden light of the sunset. Tired after a long day, the girl slowly returns to her room, feeling heaviness in her body. Suddenly, a strange light appears on the chandelier and something starts to happen to its mount. The girl looks up in surprise, not understanding what is happening when the chandelier begins to swing. The falling chandelier is reflected in the girl's eyes, and fear hinders her movements. She screams in panic and covers her head with her hands, expecting to be hit. The girl looks in amazement at the fragments of the chandelier at her feet, not understanding how it all happened. Realizing that only a few centimeters separated her from death, she breaks out in a cold sweat. A man in dress uniform appears before her, reminding her of the warning that she will regret it. The girl, confused and indignant, demands to know who he is to appear in her house so suddenly. A man in dress uniform declares his status as a contract partner. The girl, confused, recalls that she only signed a deed of ownership of the mansion. The man notes with a slight grin that she is not one to read contracts carefully. The girl is shocked to discover that the contract actually did include something important. She reads the fine print, which talks about the contractual relationship with the entity of the mansion and the duties of the manager. In despair, she accuses the situation of fraud, as she was unaware of the hidden conditions. The man reminds the girl that she signed a contract and is now obligated to fulfill its terms, and she, in despair, declares her intention to terminate the contract. The man calmly clarifies that she really does want to terminate the contract, preparing for the consequences. A huge chandelier falls from the ceiling, threatening to fall right on the girl. The girl looks up in horror, realizing the danger looming over her. The man threateningly hints that he might accidentally unclench his hand if she still wants to terminate the contract, and the girl gives in fear. The girl, with a forced smile, hurries to apologize and assures that loyalty is the best thing that was in this contract. The girl breathes a sigh of relief when the man decides that her behavior now suits him. The man demands only one thing from her to keep the mansion clean. He warns her that if she doesn't fulfill the terms of the contract, she will regret it again, and the girl is amazed by his ability to pass through objects. She excitedly asks his name, and he introduces himself as Matthias Edward von Garciel. The girl is confused and wonders how it is possible to make a deal with a ghost. The man explains that he is not a ghost, but an immortal whose existence is tied to a contract, but her attempt to clarify only irritates him. The man thinks with irritation that he is forced to deal with a girl who barely understands his words, and she decides for herself that from now on she will call him the spirit of the mansion. He claims that there is no escape from fate and reminds that everything that happens is the result of her own choice. The girl is perplexed because she doesn't remember choosing the option with the spirit, and the man wearily repeats that he is neither a ghost nor a spirit. The man thinks that the explanation is enough for her to understand everything and leaves, and the girl, confused, calls him. Left alone, she falls into despair, realizing the hopelessness of her situation. Suddenly, determination awakens in her, and she rushes into action with a cry, refusing to give up. The girl rushes forward in a rage, cursing the realtor for deceiving her and promising to take revenge for her naivety. The girl stops in the middle of the street in surprise and anxiety, not understanding what is happening around her. She notices that the place where the real estate agency used to be is now empty, and she can't believe her eyes. A man approaches her, also puzzled by the sudden changes, and tries to understand what happened. The girl asks a passerby about the fate of the agency and learns that it suddenly closed and disappeared, leaving no trace. Stunned, she sinks to the sidewalk, unable to believe what is happening. Overwhelmed by despair, the girl begins to cry, feeling complete hopelessness. The girl, tired of endless cleaning, desperately tears up the grass in the garden, thinking that she can no longer withstand Mr. Park's mania for cleanliness. Against the backdrop of a sunny day and a majestic building, she voices her decision, raising her hand with a tuft of grass. The gaze slides over the facade of the Garciel estate, where everything seems calm and serene. At the Haywood Employment Agency, she is told that the place is blacklisted and they cannot provide contact information. At another agency, Rondarondi, they explain to her that the haunted house scares people so much that no one wants to go there, even if you invite the Pope. The girl asks with surprise and alarm if everything is really that bad. The girl smiles awkwardly, admitting the current situation, and her interlocutor admires her courage. In an empty office, advice is given that finding workers will be difficult, and a suggestion is made to place an advertisement for the vacancy in the newspaper. The girl is surprised by the idea of the ad, and the agency employee explains that for a fee, you can advertise anything. Inspired, the girl thanks him for the advice and hurries to the editorial office to submit an ad. 2 weeks pass, and a stern man in a dress uniform gives cleaning advice, pointing out the need to use lemon instead of detergent. The girl tiredly scrubs the bathtub, and the man continues to admonish her, reminding her of the importance of cleanliness even in a haunted house. The girl listens with a dissatisfied look to Mr. Park's latest instructions about the need to be neat even at home. The annoying brownie Mr. Park was so notorious that no one would agree to work in the house, despite the high pay. The girl tiredly washes the dishes under Mr. Park's stern gaze, mentally wishing that at least someone would come to the rescue, otherwise she would soon not be able to bear it. Suddenly she happily notices that someone has arrived and rushes to greet the guest. With a beaming smile, she welcomes the new visitor, hoping for a change. A stranger appears on the threshold and greets you politely. The young man greets his interlocutor with a confident smile, creating an atmosphere of ease and trust. The girl looks at the guest with surprise and slight wariness, wondering what could have brought such an attractive man to their house. The man explains that he came in response to a job posting, and the girl is surprised that it is for a housekeeper position. He assures her that this is exactly the kind of job he was looking for and that the conditions are ideal, but the girl, confused, clarifies that she is looking for a live-in cleaner. The man, with a slight smile, confirms that he understands the essence of the work perfectly and meets all the requirements. The girl, a little confused, thinks that perhaps the advert contained too much information, but is glad that at least someone agreed to the job. The girl asks with disbelief whether the man really came because of the ad, and he calmly confirms it. A suspicion flashes through her mind that there might be something strange behind his actions. The man hands her his resume, and she, a little confused, accepts the documents. She considers that even such a candidate is better than no one at all, and decides that if he is not a maniac, then he will be quite suitable. The girl carefully studies the resume, learning that his name is Dante Van Dyke and he is 23 years old. She wonders why a person with such experience decided to get a job as a housekeeper for her. The young man proudly states that cleaning is what he feels most confident in. The girl watches in bewilderment as he puffs out his chest while talking about this. The name Dante Van Dyke suddenly pops into her head, causing surprise and alarm. Her memories take her to a novel about an illegitimate princess who fights against the collapse of the class system. A princess who has lived as a commoner for so long discovers her royal origins and tries to save the hierarchy. In this story, there is a protagonist who becomes her adversary, and his name is Dante Van Dyke. In the blaze of light, a figure of a man in military uniform appears, clutching a sword, and his name is Dante Van Dyke. This man, driven by hatred for the royal family and nobility, vows revenge and eventually carries out a coup d'état. The girl, hearing about the coup, is horrified and decides that she wants nothing to do with it and tries to politely refuse the candidate. The man with a cold gaze asks if she is satisfied with his resume, and the girl is at a loss under his pressure. His icy eyes demand an explanation, and the tension in the air becomes almost palpable. The girl panics and thinks that he has the look of a maniac, and if she refuses, she will inevitably die right on the spot. The girl, with a forced smile, announces that it was a stressful interview and congratulates the man on his success. The man looks at her silently, and she, covered in sweat, feels the tension in the air. He thanks her for accepting him and expresses hope for fruitful cooperation, and the girl admits to herself that she agreed out of fear. Suddenly, she decides to use the probationary period as a way to protect herself. She happily announces that they have a probationary period, and the man is surprised to clarify this point. The girl explains that if he doesn't complete the work within the allotted time, he will be fired, mentally sighing with relief. The girl, with a forced smile, suggests that the man refuse the job if he is not satisfied with the probationary period, and he thoughtfully repeats this word. Inside, she desperately hopes that he will refuse and leave on his own. The man calmly agrees, but the girl is confused and can't believe her ears. He promises with a slight smile to meet all her needs, including housework. The girl perceives his words with surprise and slight embarrassment. Freshly washed sheets flutter against the bright sunny day, symbolizing the beginning of a new chapter. In the sunny and clean kitchen, the question of what to do next is heard, filling the space with anticipation. The new housekeeper addresses the owner with a gentle smile, radiating calm and confidence. The girl, unable to hold back her tears, internally asks why everything is turning out this way. The girl watches thoughtfully as the guy is so good at cleaning that he even notices the dust on the ceiling, causing her surprise. In the kitchen, the girl and the boy come face to face, and he addresses her as the hostess. The girl shyly asks him not to call her mistress, feeling awkward. The guy calmly explains that she is his employer, which means that for him she is the boss. The girl internally agrees with his logic, but still considers such treatment excessive. The guy suggests choosing a different form of address, and the girl asks again in surprise, not understanding what he means. The girl thoughtfully goes through the options for addressing her, starting with the employer, the manager, and the captain. She continues the list, adding boss, young lady, and princess, becoming increasingly confused about the choice. The guy suggests another option to the queen, but the girl abruptly stops him. Tired of being listed, she shyly agrees to be called whatever they like. The guy agrees with a smile and calls her mistress again. The girl realizes with suspicion that she has just been outsmarted. The guy is energetically cleaning. His movements are quick and purposeful. The girl watches him from the window, and the other man remarks that this is the first time he has been so pleased with someone. The man in the white uniform confirms with a serious look that she really likes this worker, and the girl in the garden recalls how she herself was not accepted from the first day. The man indignantly points out that he can't compare her to that guy because she pulls out roses to plant lettuce. The girl, confused, asks if they were really roses and apologizes if they were expensive. The man wearily admits that of course they were roses. In the past, these gardens were famous for their beauty, and the nobility often used them for relaxation. The girl is horrified to realize that the roses were very expensive and is amazed by the grandeur of the garden. The man informs her that it is now her responsibility to manage this garden, causing her surprise. Against the backdrop of the green lawn, they both look small in the face of nature. The girl reflects with a smile that nature is most beautiful in its natural form. The man admits that she has no talent for housekeeping and advises her to hire servants, including a gardener. The girl wonders why housekeepers need combat skills, reflecting on the unusual requirements for staff. A man in formal uniform explains that uninvited guests are expected soon, and this requires special preparation. He adds that the more eyes there are on the property, the safer and cleaner the mansion will be, and the girl irritably calls him a cleanliness fanatic. The girl enthusiastically comes up with a plan. If she hires someone more competent than Dante, she will be able to find a reason to fire him. Inspired by her idea, she happily decides to take action. Inside the mansion, the girl reports that she has several tasks for Dante. The guy insists on accompanying the girl, assuming that she will have to carry heavy things, but she assures him that she does not intend to buy anything heavy. The girl catches the guy cleaning, and he easily lifts a heavy sofa with one hand, causing her silent shock. She wonders with bewilderment if there is anyone in this house other than cleanliness fanatics. The girl quickly walks down the corridor, assuring that she will return soon, and the guy calls her worriedly. She hurries down the corridor, admitting to herself that she is still a little nervous. The girl wonders where to find a person who can satisfy the demands of this worker obsessed with cleanliness. The girl rides her bike down the street, thinking that Dante makes her life so much easier, and wondering whether she should fire him. She gathers her courage, convincing herself not to give in to her emotions so as not to get into trouble. An inner voice tells her that if she doesn't want trouble, then firing Dante is the right decision. The girl insistently demands that this time the job posting be written correctly, because the previous one sounded like an invitation to the next world. The man tries to justify himself, but she insists that the ad is normal, ignoring his protests. The man enthusiastically promises to do everything as it should be, and the girl looks at him with distrust. The girl arrives at the market with an anxious premonition, looking around. Her gaze stops on a pink dress, which seems especially beautiful to her. She asks about the price of the dress, and the seller quotes 300,000 giveaways. Upon hearing the price, the girl is surprised, and the seller immediately offers her a discount of 5,000. She reasons to herself that the dress isn't worth even 20,000 and suspects that the seller thinks she's naive. The girl decides to say with a smile that she forgot her wallet at home to avoid an awkward situation. The girl is about to leave, deciding that she will buy the dress next time, but the seller calls her back. The salesperson angrily states that if she touched the dress, she is obliged to buy it, and tries to stop her. The girl calmly replies that she didn't touch the dress, but the seller insists that he saw it himself. Two men joined the dispute, claiming that they also saw her touch the dress and even allegedly damaged it. Men offer the girl to simply buy a dress, hinting that it will be better for everyone, and she realizes that she is dealing with typical scammers. The girl realizes that they are trying to deceive her and decides not to show weakness, so as not to become an easy victim. The girl indignantly points out that if a dress tears from the slightest touch, then it is a cheap consumer product, and suggests testing the seller's clothing for durability. Suddenly, someone roughly grabs her by the collar, not letting her leave. The man, with a frightening smile and an ominous look, asks if she understands who she is talking to, hinting at danger. The girl, despite her fear, looks defiantly at her offender, not wanting to give in. The man is angry at her stubbornness, his face distorted with anger. The girl feels pain and internally decides that she needs to get out of this dangerous situation as quickly as possible. Amid the tense atmosphere, someone is stunned by what is happening. A girl and a guy find themselves in an awkward situation while discussing lingerie details, which causes embarrassment for both of them. The guy, confused and with a flushed face, remembers that he wore red underwear today. The girl, seeing an opportunity, decisively strikes. The guy gets hit on the shoulder, not expecting such a turn of events. He screams in pain, and the girl watches his reaction in surprise. One of the men panics and supports the other, who is holding his shoulder and in pain, admitting that his shoulder is dislocated. The girl looks around with anxiety and determination, realizing that it is time to flee. Someone's hand suddenly grabs the girl by the shoulder, not letting her leave. The girl screams in surprise and pain when she is stopped. She falls to the ground, clutching her bruised shoulder and wincing in pain. The man angrily accuses the girl of assault and states that people like her deserve to be treated accordingly. The man screams and clutches his face, struck by the sudden blow. His friend rushes towards him in panic, trying to understand what happened. A girl in a school uniform, overcome with fear, rushes away, driven by an internal scream. She runs down the street and someone watches her, not rushing to pursue her. Finding herself in the forest, the girl breathes heavily, convinced that she has managed to break away. Suddenly, a voice is heard behind her, informing her that she has dropped something, and the girl turns around in surprise, recognizing the voice. A young man with a bicycle appears among the flowering trees and is met by the joyful gaze of a girl. He explains that he followed her out of concern and notes that she almost got into trouble, and the girl thanks him. The girl is surprised to realize that he was the one involved in the bandits' downfall. The young man admits with a slight smile that he only gave a warning so as not to aggravate the situation. The girl asks worriedly if everything is okay with her shoulder after the incident. She assures with a smile that she is strong and everything is fine with her. The man and the girl find themselves very close to each other, their eyes meeting in the soft light of the sunset. The girl, embarrassed and blushing, assures that she is fine, but the man carefully warns about possible pain later. He advises her to see a doctor, but she insists with a smile and energetic gestures that she is completely healthy. The man asks with a serious look about the origin of her pendant, and the girl, surprised, asks what he's talking about. She explains that this is the only thing she has left from her father. The man sympathetically clarifies that her father has died. The girl turns away and admits that she can't say for sure, and the young man is surprised by her answer. She explains that her father was a military mercenary, but one day the army simply sent his things without explanation, and adds that she doesn't remember his face, so she's not very sad. They walk side by side along the path, immersed in silence. The girl curiously asks why the nobleman works as a housekeeper. The young man replies with a slight smile that he simply enjoys cleaning. He explains that at home the servants always stopped him, so he could not do this work. Against the backdrop of the sunset sky, the young man admits that he just wanted to relax, and the girl looks thoughtfully into the distance. There is a light reflecting in her eyes, and it looks like she is about to say something important. A story emerges in his memories of Dante achieving great success in the war and then suddenly retiring. His soul was filled only with hatred for the imperial house, which treated him like cattle. The young man is surprised to realize that these feelings are familiar to him. The girl explains with a smile that burnout is a terrible thing, when you lose motivation and don't want to do anything, and he asks with bewilderment what it is. The girl explains with a smile that constant overwork and stress lead to complete exhaustion. The young man thoughtfully agrees, remembering that too much has happened recently. Evening envelops the garden, and the man advises the girl to rest as it is already late. She realizes with slight confusion that she is indeed tired. Lying in bed, the girl reflects on how Dante seemed strange to her today, and that there was a sense of longing in his gaze, not hatred. The silence of the night is broken by a knock on the door, interrupting her thoughts. A girl in a nightgown gets out of bed in alarm, trying to understand the source of the strange sound. Carefully peering out into the corridor, she anxiously calls out a familiar name, hoping to see a friend. Suddenly, a stranger grabs her, ominously pressing her to himself and threatening to remain silent for his own life. In horror and shock, the girl cannot break free. Her eyes are full of fear and bewilderment. In a dark room, 3 men in cloaks grabbed a girl. One of them reproaches the other for carelessness, and the girl, in fear, presses her hands to her chest. The girl looks at her kidnappers in panic and bewilderment, mentally wondering who these strange robbers are. One of the men leans towards the girl with a grin and says that they are looking for something. The man smiles menacingly and explains that if the girl helps them with the search, they will leave quietly, offering her cooperation. The girl trembles with fear, clenching her fists and closing her eyes, while her mouth is still covered by someone's hand. The hooded man happily announces that they are looking for the Rose Chapel. The girl wonders in surprise whether the chapel is really located somewhere in this house, and her interlocutor accuses her of pretense and demands to tell the truth because she lives here. She thinks to herself with a tired and indifferent look that she really doesn't know anything. A few days ago, the girl noticed a mess in the basement and heard a loud noise, deciding that this too needed to be cleaned. Remembering the warning, she hears a voice that forbids entry without permission and sees a man named Mr. Matthias. She is frightened by the threat that if she enters, she will die, and she asks again in confusion. Inwardly, she wonders ironically why she is being so frightened and suggests that there might be something important behind the door, for example, a diary with dirty secrets. A man with a cold gaze warns that entering inside could cost lives. The girl, with a forced smile, agrees not to go in, glad that she won't have to clean another room. She is surprised to realize that that very room was a chapel, and her interlocutor is convinced that she knows where it is. A hooded man approaches the girl, threatening her and demanding to be shown the way if she does not want to die. The girl notices in horror that the attacker has a real knife in his hand. Frightened, she admits that she knows the way, but explains that without her the door cannot be opened, because only she knows the password. A hooded man holds the girl by her clothes in a threatening manner, and she fears in her mind what will happen if she immediately tells everything to the kidnappers. One of the kidnappers doubts that a simple maid could know important information, while the other believes that they are dealing with the mistress of the house and recalls rumors about a witch with brown hair. The man with the knife mockingly dismisses the idea of a witch, believing that a real witch would not have been caught so stupidly, and decides that it was a joke. The girl is ordered to go first and is threatened with violence if she tries to do anything, and she thinks anxiously about her situation. The girl hesitantly leads the kidnappers down the corridor, showing them the way. Finding himself in an empty place, one of the kidnappers is disappointed to note that the sought-after object is not there, and is surprised that the rumors about the disappearance turned out to be true. Two men in black cloaks discuss whether the witch could have survived, but one of them is sure that it was just a joke. The girl, looking tired, thinks irritably about how tired she is of their conversations and is surprised by the disappearance of something important. She stops in front of a massive door and announces that the right place is here. A man with a cold expression on his face and a knife in his hand demands to open the door. The girl, confused, asks again if she really needs to open the door, and the man confirms this. She panics and asks if they are sure they want her to open the door, but the man insists on his own. The girl, in despair, remembers the warning not to go inside and mentally calls for help, feeling abandoned. The hooded man impatiently urges her on, demanding that she open the door faster. She tells him with a sly smile that the password is very long and the ritual requires silence, hoping to buy time. The kidnappers are outraged by her request to remain silent, but the girl begins to drag out the process, feigning the importance of the moment. The girl slowly and solemnly pronounces a long phrase, mentally praying that someone will come to her aid while she stalls for time. She sings the hymn, internally surprised that she has already finished all the words, but there is still no help. The heavy door slowly opens with a loud creak, causing surprise among everyone present. The girl, with bewilderment and slight fear, realizes that the door actually opened by itself. She hesitantly gestures for the others to come in, telling them to go about their business. A man in a black cloak with a sneer and a knife in his hand suspects a deception, believing that entering inside is life-threatening. The girl realizes with alarm that the death threat behind the door was not just words, but notices that the dangerous creature has disappeared. She asks in surprise what exactly disappeared and receives the answer that it was the owner of the mansion. Mr. Matthias appears in a flash of blue light, causing surprise and awe. The girl covers her face with her hand in despair, realizing that her desire for comfort could lead to death. A man with a knife orders a girl to come in and get the Philosopher's Stone, and she, frightened, asks again what exactly she needs to find. In the center of the magic circle sparkles the Philosopher's Stone, an artifact that grants the owner of the mansion immortality. The girl is amazed to realize that Mr. Matthias was not just a ghost obsessed with cleanliness, but something much more. The frightened girl reminds him that she was threatened with death for entering, but the man merely suggests that they test it out. She is pushed inside, and before she knows it, she finds herself outside the threshold of a mysterious room. Losing her balance, she falls to the floor and screams in panic. Once inside, she complains of pain and wonders why she had to be treated so roughly. Looking around, she notes with surprise that everything is not as scary as she expected. Suddenly, she feels cold, and she tries in horror to understand where the icy temperature in the room comes from. The girl trembles with fear, lying on the cold floor, and prays in despair for help. Tears roll down her cheek as she thinks of her grandfather. She notices that her pendant begins to glow, causing surprise and hope. The image of her grandfather, who once gave her this amulet, promising that it would always protect her, comes to mind. The girl tremblingly calls her grandfather again, feeling his support even from a distance. Suddenly, she notices a strange glow and looks at the source of the light in surprise. The girl stops in front of a portrait in a deserted room, reflecting on the fact that the object she was looking for was recently right in front of her. A girl in a white nightgown looks around in surprise, wondering about someone's portrait. She notices the signature on the portrait and reads the name of Saint Mira Rilke. An association comes to mind. Rilke is the name of the rose that Mr. Park so carefully grows. She wonders why the portrait is hanging in the chapel and suggests that it depicts Mr. Matthias's lover before he became a spirit bound. The girl notices another portrait standing against the wall and is surprised. She sees that there are several such portraits, and they all depict the same woman. Old portraits lie on the floor, their faces barely visible, and a sense of mystery hangs in the air. The girl thoughtfully suggests that perhaps all these people once managed the mansion, replacing each other. A man in a black cloak with a stern expression demands a report on the results in 10 minutes. The girl, looking tired, replies that if he is so impatient, he should look for it himself. She teases the man mockingly, hinting that he is afraid to go inside. The man becomes enraged, his gaze becomes dangerous and intense. The hooded man angrily threatens, and his companions struggle to contain their laughter. The girl, with a confident smile, reminds that she is not alone here. The man reacts to her words with confusion and surprise. The man's two companions are taken aback by the sudden appearance of someone else. The group leader panics and tries to understand what is happening. An elegant man enters the room, calmly adjusting his glove and reminding everyone of the rules of decency for uninvited guests. The man in gloves takes out a weapon, remembering that everyone who saw his tracks disappeared. The hooded man grins and notes that everything happens by the grace of God. He points the gun at the other, admitting that he tried to resolve the matter quietly. The girl in the white nightgown anxiously demands that he hurry and find the necessary item to save the guy. The guy cautiously promises that he will now find what is needed. Suddenly, he delivers a powerful blow to his opponent, knocking out his weapon and changing the course of events. A pistol flashes in his hand, ready to fire. A young man in a white shirt confidently holds a weapon, standing over a defeated enemy. The vanquished man looks at the stranger in surprise and wonders about his identity. The man with the cold gaze calls himself just a housekeeper. The girl screams in despair, begging him to stop. She bitterly admits that it's all over. The girl looks in surprise at the man, next to whom his defeated opponents lie on the floor. She asks in fear if they are really dead. The man replies with a slight smile that, unfortunately, yes. The girl repeats his words in confusion, not believing what she heard. The man, smiling, says that everyone is still alive. He decides to temporarily lock them in the chapel and then hand them over to the police. The girl, breathing a sigh of relief, tries to find at least something positive in what happened. The man supports her when she suddenly loses her balance. He asks worriedly about her well-being, and she embarrassedly admits that her legs have given way. The man notices that she is injured, but the girl assures him that she is fine. He notices the blood on her knee, causing her to be surprised. The girl grabs her knee in pain, wondering when she managed to get hurt. The man notices that the wound on the girl's leg is quite large, and she admits with a smile that she didn't notice it right away because of stress. He says with regret that he could have helped earlier if he had been called, but the girl begins to make excuses. The girl says that there is a spirit named Matthias in the mansion who is attached to this place. She admits that she was biding her time, hoping for the appearance of this spirit. The girl notes with a smile that she apparently made the wrong bet, and the man looks at her thoughtfully. He promises that next time he will come right away. The man carefully lifts the girl into his arms, apologizing for the surprise, and she looks at him in surprise. He explains that he will carry her to the room, since it is difficult for her to walk, and the girl shyly tries to object. He carries her down the corridor in his arms, and she can't believe that she's found herself in the role of a fairy tale princess. In her imagination, they look like heroes of a sweet story, and she blushes with embarrassment. The girl shyly refuses help, assuring that she can handle it herself. The young man calmly states his experience and offers to take control of the situation. In indecision, there is an internal protest, despite the interlocutor's arguments. The girl insists on her independence, and the man asks about trust. The man opens the first aid kit, assuring that he will treat the wound better. The girl justifies herself, saying that such wounds heal quickly and everything will be fine. The young man looks at the girl with concern, wondering if he is causing her discomfort. The girl shyly gives in, allowing him to act. He promises with a slight smile to do everything very carefully. The guy prepares medicine, and the girl is inwardly outraged by his charm. He carefully treats her wound, noting her bravery and imagining how painful and scared she was. The girl admits that she was indeed scared, but she is confident in her feelings. He carefully treats the wound, thinking that tears won't help in situations like this. There is a tense pause between them, filled with light and anticipation. The man looks closely at the girl, wondering if she has ever encountered something like this before. A small smile appears in her eyes, but memories begin to surface. She remembers how her father went into mercenary service, leaving her as a baby in her aunt's family. The faces of my aunt and uncle come to mind. They were very kind at first, probably thanks to the money my father sent. After a certain point, the aunt and uncle's attitude towards the girl changed dramatically, and she was left alone in a long corridor. Everything the girl did began to irritate the adults, and she tried in vain to find support from them. Any attempt by her to cry caused them to fly into fits of anger, and she remained inconsolable on the floor. From that time on, determination settled in her gaze, and she stopped crying. The girl admits that after this, despite other troubles, she hardly cries. The young man thinks silently, watching her and holding a bandage in his hands. The young man sympathetically notes that it must have been very difficult for her. The girl smiles through the light and flowers, assuring that she is okay. His gaze softens as he watches her reaction closely. He finishes the bandage and advises her to take it easy for a while. The girl jumps up joyfully, assuring him that she feels completely healthy thanks to his care. In a fit of enthusiasm, she accidentally hurts herself, but does not lose her cheerfulness. The young man notes her restlessness with a smile, but notices that the pain still hasn't gone away. He offers his help in changing clothes with a touch of irony. The girl shyly refuses, assuring that her hands are perfectly fine and she can handle it herself. He accepts her decision with understanding and steps away. The girl breathes a sigh of relief, left alone with her thoughts. She carefully touches her bandaged leg, mentally confirming her suspicions about the pain. For a long time now, she has noticed that even serious injuries heal quickly, and even after falling from the second floor, everything was fine. Such wounds disappear overnight, and the girl is surprised, associating this with the blood of the mercenary. She decides to leave the bandages on out of politeness, since Dante tried so hard to cure her. What is more important to her now is what she was going to do this morning, and she is full of determination. The girl enthusiastically calls for Mr. Matthias, looking for him around the house. She looks under the furniture, demanding that he come out, because she has accumulated questions. A girl peeks out from the bushes, unexpectedly colliding with a young man who notices her in surprise. She justifies herself by explaining that she is looking for someone, and he is interested in her strange behavior. A young man is about to throw out the trash, and the girl suspiciously asks about his intentions. She notices that today is not garbage collection day, and her surprise only grows. The girl enthusiastically assumes that they are talking about thieves from the chapel and asks to take her with him. The young man refuses her with a firm smile without changing his mind. The young man advises the girl to take care because her legs are not yet fully healed, although she is sure of the opposite. The girl insists on her participation because she is the first witness and victim capable of giving accurate testimony. The man tries to object, but the girl resolutely suggests going alone. He agrees with her stubbornness, but asks her to let her know immediately if things get tough for her. To disguise themselves, they dress in civilian clothes so as not to attract attention. In the chief's office, they demand the immediate arrest of the criminals, and the official is surprised by their pressure. The girl and the young man confirm that the suspects are currently at the Garciel estate. The official, hearing this, thinks about it because this place makes him wary. He reports that the investigation will have to be postponed due to a lack of resources, asking for a few more days to pass. The girl is outraged by the need to keep thieves in her own house, and her companion tries to calm her down. The young man apologizes to the assembled crowd by taking off his hat. He introduces himself as the commander of a special magical forces unit, inspiring respect with his status. Despite being on vacation, the hero holds a badge in his hand confirming his authority to conduct an investigation and understands that his rights remain valid. The officer, recognizing the commander, hastens to salute and promises to immediately take up the assigned task. A girl with green eyes and a man with glasses are discussing how all the staff is busy with another assignment, and the man's resume stated that he is a former commander, although in fact he is just on vacation. The man explains that his resignation was postponed and he was sent on leave instead, although the army seems reluctant to let him go. An inner voice notes that it is not surprising, because he is the main character of a love story, and no one would want to part with such talent, after which the man confirms his departure for the evening. A man in a hat approaches a girl, inviting her to go together. The man in the hat repeats his address to the girl with surprise, remembering that he had called her mistress before. The girl with green eyes is shocked and irritated as she thinks about what to do with this housekeeper. She quickly assures that their relationship is purely business and asks not to misunderstand anything. The girl is mentally outraged by the housekeeper's incorrigibility, and he asks her not to call him that so as not to give rise to unnecessary rumors. The man with a soft expression on his face asks why the hostess is reacting this way. The girl wearily asks to just go home, and the man looks at her intently. The man in the hat, with a slight smile, announces that he is going to get a bicycle. At this time, loud blows and shouts are heard in the Rose Chapel, demanding that the door be opened. One of the hooded men wonders irritably if the black-haired guy is really just a housekeeper. They argue that with such power, he is most likely a servant of the witch, although the rumors about the witch seem to some to be just gossip. The silver-haired boy recalls a strange spell and tells how one of them dislocated his shoulder when he tried to grab the girl by the wrist. Suddenly, someone gets scared, mistaking something for a ghost, and tries to calm the others, promising to look around. An inner voice contemptuously accuses the intruders of soiling his precious mansion, causing one of them to feel shock and alarm. A hooded man, waving a weapon warily, tries to find out who is nearby. A threat echoes in my thoughts that anyone who sets foot in the Garciel estate must be prepared to part with their life, and the man with the knife demands an answer. A tense grin appears on the man's face, and a question hangs in the air that sounds like a challenge. An inner voice notes that this harsh voice seems out of this world, adding to the unsettling atmosphere. The hooded man panics as he recalls that the mansion's owner was rumored to have disappeared, but now doubts it. The man with the cold gaze warily tries to understand who uttered the mysterious words, and the tension in the air grows. One of the attackers, gripped by terror, screams in fear, his face distorted with panic. In desperation and fear, the hooded man with a sword demands that the intruder leave them immediately, while the others are confused and do not understand what is happening. Against the backdrop of a golden sunset, two people are riding a bicycle along an alley, and the girl asks her companion if he has heard of the Philosopher's Stone. The man explains that the Philosopher's Stone is rumored to grant the power of the gods to its owner, and adds that it is supposedly located in the Garciel estate. The girl is surprised that her companion also knows about these rumors, because this is one of the most famous legends. The girl suspiciously wonders if Dante has settled in the mansion in order to steal the Philosopher's Stone. The young man calmly replies that the artifact will only go to the person chosen by the owner of the mansion, and the girl is surprised by his ability to guess her thoughts. A legend emerges that ownership will pass to whoever takes possession of the stone first, and a mysterious artifact sparkles in the background. The girl thinks with irritation that the owner of the mansion, although considered dead, is still alive and does not appear in public, and his activities remain a secret. A man in a white uniform with a cold expression wonders if he is being blamed for everything, and irritably points out that he did not come up with this ad, and then advises to find someone who can do the job better. The officer and his team report that they have gathered everyone they could and salute the commander against the backdrop of the lined-up soldiers. A man and a woman with tense faces ask not to report the incident to senior management, and the man standing opposite is clearly nervous. A man in a formal suit suggests finishing the job and dispersing, saying that the robbers are locked in a chapel in the basement, and one of the police officers sighs with relief. A man leads a group of police officers, inviting them to follow him down a night alley. The girl with green eyes silently watches what is happening, without interfering in the conversation. Inwardly, she notes that, although she is formally the mistress, for some reason everyone only listens to Dante, and this causes her unpleasant feelings. A police officer with a flashlight and a gun loudly demands that people raise their hands and surrender, announcing the presence of the police. A young police officer screams in panic, holding a gun, while his partner anxiously asks what is going on. Lifeless bodies lie on the basement floor, and someone stunnedly reports that all the robbers are dead. The girl with green eyes is shocked by the news of death because just yesterday everyone was alive. She fearfully asks the man that it is forbidden to kill people in her house, clearly suspecting him. The man with a cold expression is surprised that he is suspected of what happened. The girl sheepishly admits that after yesterday's events she cannot confidently say no. A girl, a little embarrassed, tries to find the words to start a conversation with a man in the corridor of the dungeon. She suddenly notices something important and asks the inspector to pay attention to it. The police officer and his partner stop at the body and offer to take a closer look at it. A mysterious object sparkles in the hand of the deceased, which immediately attracts the attention of everyone present. In the twilight, a man carefully opens his palm, in which multicolored precious stones sparkle. The man in the suit remarks that the tragedy apparently occurred because of a dispute over the trophy, while his interlocutor thoughtfully examines the stone he found. There are lifeless bodies lying on the ground, and one of the men asks why all the corpses have stab wounds if they were supposedly only stunned, while the other feels suspicious. A man in a formal suit reasons that if he were a murderer, he would not report it and arouse unnecessary suspicion. He notes that their leader was not among the dead. Flashes of lightning illuminate the scene, and the man assumes that the leader most likely killed his accomplices and disappeared. Smiling and giving a thumbs up, the mustachioed man admires the commander's deduction, noting that he has put all the facts together perfectly. The man happily reports that the dead men turned out to be the very thieves who had been wanted in the area for a long time, and thanks the commander for their capture. The commander authorizes the removal of bodies and evidence for examination, allowing the subordinate to take everything necessary. The man in the hat, taking off his headdress, says that he will not bother the commander anymore. The girl with green eyes is surprised that the door is locked and the leader is not there, and suggests that perhaps he escaped during the fight with Dante. The commander, with a heavy expression on his face, wonders whether those around him really suspect him of what happened. The girl with green eyes smiles shyly, trying to justify her thoughts. A man with a cold gaze recalls the years spent at war and the many lives he had to take. He admits that outside of war he is not used to frivolously taking someone's life. His face is serious and thoughtful. A tense silence hangs between them, the girl stunned by his words. She quickly apologizes, admitting that she jumped to conclusions and now understands what kind of person he appears to be in her eyes. The girl turns to the man with anxiety and regret, trying to stop him. The girl with green eyes regrets that she judged the man too harshly, and remorse is reflected on her face. In a fit of emotion, she grabs his hand, not wanting to let go. The man looks at her with a serious expression, his gaze full of internal struggle. The girl apologizes to him for her doubts, lowering her eyes in embarrassment. The man admits that he did make a mistake this time, his voice sounding calm and restrained. The girl asks him in surprise if he regrets what he did and receives a confident answer. A man takes a girl by the hands and asks her to fulfill one of his wishes as an apology, and she, surprised, asks what that wish is. He answers with a slight smile that he will tell you about his wish later, when he needs it. The girl is perplexed why she can't say it now, but the man assures her that desire is very important and should be saved for later. The man invites the girl inside, noting that it is already late, and she feels an uneasy premonition. In a luxurious hall, a man in a white dress uniform calmly admits that everything that happened was his fault. The girl is shocked and her eyes wide open as she realizes what she heard. The girl, confused, asks the man again, not believing what she heard, and he calmly asks if there is a problem with this. She indignantly accuses him of cruelty and unpredictability, not understanding how he can kill people so cold-bloodedly. The man indifferently reproaches her for being too noisy and uses magic to make the girl shut up. The girl, unable to speak, tries to explain something in a panic, and the man decides to explain the situation to her. He recalls that he could not let the uninvited guests of the mansion go, and cunningly placed the jewels in their hands. The man hoped that everyone would think that the guests had quarreled over the spoils and killed each other. The man reasons that the escapee will spread the news that he is still alive, and thanks to this there will be fewer uninvited guests in the future, and the girl cautiously agrees with this logic. The girl, with a displeased expression on her face, sarcastically agrees with the man, mentally calling him a great savior, and he silently watches her reaction. She calls the man a genius and a wizard with exaggerated admiration, emphasizing his unusual abilities. The girl, beaming with delight, makes a heart-shaped gesture, mentally noting how cool it is, and the man irritably asks her not to do it again. The man in the white uniform states that he has a question, but then immediately refuses to answer. The girl enthusiastically asks what the philosopher's stone is, and the man is surprised how she learned about it. The girl says that the thieves mentioned the philosopher's stone and claimed that Mr. Matthias owned the mansion thanks to its power. The man listens to her words silently, showing no emotion. He suddenly announces that guests will soon arrive at the house, and the girl asks again in surprise. The girl panics and demands an explanation, reminding him that she was promised that there would be no uninvited guests. The man clarifies that he was only talking about the guests, without adding any uninvited words, and the girl insists on a normal answer before he leaves the conversation again. A thunderstorm begins outside the mansion window, and someone's voice calls for the owner. A man reproaches a girl for eating snacks in bed, reminding her that other people have to clean up other people's messes, and she sheepishly apologizes. The girl admits with a smile that food tastes better when you eat it lying down. Suddenly, a tremor begins, and the girl panics, thinking it is an earthquake, advising Dante to take cover under the furniture. When everything ends quickly, the girl is surprised that everything happened so quickly and feels awkward. The man notes that it was not an earthquake, but most likely something else. He reports that someone has arrived, and the girl anxiously assumes that they might be thieves. The man reminds the girl that thieves don't ring the doorbell, and she sheepishly agrees. In a luxurious hall, a man discreetly inquires about what has brought guests at such a late hour, while the girl behind him cannot see anything. The girl is confused and doesn't understand what's happening. The new guest explains that he got lost on the way home. 3 knights, a man with long hair, and a boy with pink hair stand in front of the entrance in the rain, who admits that this is why he is late. The pink-haired girl introduces herself as Ezekiel, and the brown-haired girl reacts with surprise. The girl with green eyes, a little embarrassed, calls herself Mia Fortuna and asks why the guests have come to her house. The knight in armor explains that he has come in response to a recruitment advertisement and says that they all want to get a job. The girl is surprised that all 3 of them, including the child, are applying for the job. The knight hands over a folder with a resume, confirming their intentions. Mia, holding a resume in her hands, suspects that the applicants look strange in the middle of the night, but an inner voice tells her that they have been accepted. In the luxurious hall, it is announced that all 3 candidates have been accepted, and the girl with green eyes looks surprised. The dark-haired man realizes that the real owner of the mansion stands before him. The owner of the mansion officially allows the new tenants to stay in the house. The girl is indignant, reminding him that she is the mistress of the house and demands an explanation. The man in uniform calmly says that there are many rooms and offers to choose anyone, and the girl tries to stop what is happening. The new tenants happily thank the landlady, asking which room is more spacious, but she, confused, tries to stop them. The girl holds the papers in her hands in confusion, not understanding what is going on at all. The next morning, she sits at the table, looking at the resumes of the new tenants. It turns out that the man in armor named Killian is a sword master and captain of the Imperial Guard. After the coup, both heroes will join the Council of 7, and the mysterious Eluard, commander of a legion of demons, will be the real icing on the cake. The girl realizes that even Dante was not the worst of her nightmares. A new day begins with a man bringing tea to the hostess and greeting her. The girl looks exhausted and tired, which does not go unnoticed. The young man is interested in what the new residents are doing and assumes that everyone is busy with their own business. The girl panics when she realizes that the new employees have already started their duties, and she urgently needs to talk to Mr. Matthias. The young man says that he has a message from the owner of the mansion, and the girl wonders what he is talking about. He explains that contracts with new employees have already been signed, and the girl is amazed at his efficiency. The girl is reminded that if she ever decides to fire new employees, she should remember about the chandelier. The girl panics when she realizes that she will no longer be able to fire the new employees and clutches her head. The young man cautiously asks if she wants to fire them, and she hesitantly agrees. He is relieved by her answer, and she is surprised by his reaction. The girl admits that she thought that her efforts were not enough, since new workers were needed. The young man admits that he was a little offended, but now he feels relieved if it's all about the owner of the mansion. The girl assures with a smile that when it comes to cleaning, no one can compare to their Dante. The girl hurries to look at the new servants, entrusting the cleaning to Dante and leaving unfinished tea. Going out into the yard, she is surprised to notice the changes and cannot believe her eyes. She looks out over a perfectly manicured garden with a fountain and is amazed that it was all done in less than half a day. A knight in armor approaches her and she recognizes Mr. Killian. The girl is puzzled by how the swordmaster dealt with the garden so quickly, but Killian asks if she likes the result. She assures with a smile that she really likes the garden and admits that she is simply amazed at the speed of work. The knight is relieved by the praise, and the girl smiles contentedly. She wonders why such a swordmaster chose their house to work in. Killian begins to explain that his decision is due to certain circumstances. He admits that, having seen Dante hired as a housekeeper, he decided that he too would be treated without prejudice. The girl is surprised to realize that Killian knows Dante and recalls how they participated in the same operation together. She advises the knight to take off his armor at home, since he has been wearing it since yesterday. Killian explains that his armor is a power control artifact and that removing it is dangerous. The girl recalls that the consequences for espers who exceed the limit can be dire. She worries that perhaps the Empire has driven him to this state and wonders if he is in constant pain. The knight assures that he now feels no pain and is calmer than ever. The girl is happy for him, but still finds the armor terribly uncomfortable. She wonders with surprise how he copes with household chores if he can't take them off, and even wash in them. Killian admits that he only takes off his armor when he showers, and the girl is surprised how he guessed her thoughts. She wishes him luck with the garden and hurries back into the house. The girl reflects that the knight seems like a good man, but does not understand how he could lead a coup d'état. A butler with long blonde hair announces that he found a letter in the mailbox. Mia realizes with irony that she now has a demon butler working in her house and considers her life to be unusual. A story about the plague doctor Eluard, who spreads and cures the plague in exchange for souls while remaining a demon to the core, comes to mind. Eluard suddenly decides to become a butler instead of a doctor, and his actions seem mysterious. The girl remembers the letter that was just given to her. It turns out that there had been a mailbox on the property all this time, hidden under the ivy, and the letter that was found was already 100 years old. She is surprised that no one has discovered the box for a century, and tries to understand what is written in the letter, encountering unknown symbols. The girl decides that Mr. Matthias can help, but he suddenly informs her that she spends too little money compared to her income. She asks anxiously about taxes, and Matthias confirms that given the current state of affairs, taxes could become a problem. The girl asks in despair if it is really impossible to reduce taxes, and the butler thinks about her question. He says with a smile that there are several ways to solve this problem. The first method is to make contributions to various organizations, such as a church, and the second is to withdraw cash and provide the tax authorities with fake double-entry bookkeeping. The butler is about to tell her about the third method, and the girl watches his actions with surprise. He unexpectedly takes her hand and asks her to guess for herself, leaving the situation mysterious and intriguing. The girl with green eyes is confused, not understanding what is happening, and looks forward in surprise. A young man with long blonde hair and a monocle smiles as he says an important word. The couple dances among the flowers while the man explains that the post-war marriage policy provides many benefits and that registering the estate as joint property will immediately reduce taxes. The girl, shocked by what she heard, internally admits that the offer sounds tempting, but still hesitates. She admits that she has no one she could marry. The man, smiling, assures that the right person is right here. The girl, confused, clarifies whether it is really about marriage with Eluard, and he assures her of support and security in the future. She reflects that marrying a handsome man who promises to care and protect her for life sounds very attractive. However, the girl admits that she does not want to marry a demon. The man reminds her that there is something important about his demonic nature that she is missing. He comes closer and hints that the demon knows everything about her from head to toe. The girl is surprised, and the man confirms his words with a smile. A man with a mysterious smile promises a girl pleasure that will eclipse everything in this world. The girl, embarrassed and confused, cannot find words to respond to what she has heard. Indignation flares up inside her, and she mentally scolds the impudent demon. She abruptly refuses this option, insisting on finding another way. The man thinks about her words, and the girl eagerly awaits an answer. Suddenly he remembers the time and hurries off to do some business, leaving the girl confused. The girl, irritated, remembers the tax deduction and indignantly turns to the demon. She reproachfully remarks that neither he nor his friend Matthias bother with social conventions and quickly disappear when they cannot answer. An image of a young chef with pink hair appears in her imagination, and she decides that it is time to test his culinary skills because she is very hungry. The girl cheerfully greets the cook and asks if there will be lunch. The boy corrects her with a serious expression, insisting that he be called by his first name, Ezekiel. She insists that if he is small, then she will call him small, and demands that he address her formally, since he is clearly younger. A boy with pink hair reproaches a girl for her informal address, surprised by her foreign habits. The girl decides to herself that since he became the head of the magic tower at such an age, his insolence is forgivable, and she magnanimously turns a blind eye to it. She tries to hide her thoughts by saying that she is simply hungry and asks if there is anything to eat, but is refused. The boy reports that not only is nothing prepared, but there is no food in the house, and complains about the incompetence of Foreman Dyke. The girl is surprised to hear that Mr. Dante was called a foreman and asks about it again. The boy asks with a serious look if she knows Mr. Dante. The girl with green eyes recalls that she often crossed paths with the boy on the battlefield, being surprised by this fact. A battle scene where a boy with pink hair fights comes to mind, and she becomes outraged at the cruelty of the Empire forcing children to fight. The boy reflects on the events of the past, without justifying the coup, and is surprised by the sudden silence around him. The girl invites the boy to go with her to the market, believing that he should get to know the place since he will now be cooking. The boy wonders who allowed her to use his nickname and is perplexed by her address. The girl says that she will wait for him outside, urging him to get dressed and go out, and the boy remains slightly confused. The pink-haired boy sighs heavily as he prepares to go outside. The girl joyfully calls him to the gate, offering to ride a bicycle to the market to get there faster. Suddenly, a huge red dragon appears in front of them, causing quite a commotion. The girl screams in horror when she sees a monster right in front of her. She panics and demands to leave immediately, but the boy calmly explains that there is nothing unusual about this, since everyone arrived on the dragon yesterday. The girl is stunned to realize that yesterday's earthquake and deafening roar were caused by this very dragon. The boy announces that the dragon is a housewarming gift and names it Toto, and the girl is shocked to realize that it is a real dragon. The girl is confused and thinks that giving a living creature as a gift is clearly too much. The boy calmly decides that if that's the case, he'll turn the dragon into cutlets, which confuses the girl. He adds that Killian will be heartbroken, since it was he who saved the dragon from the underground fighting. The dragon sadly says goodbye and prepares to leave. The girl, in a panic, stops the boy, promising to take care of the dragon and raise it herself. The girl notices with surprise that if you look closely, the dragon even seems cute. She is at a loss as to where to keep such a large pet, since even their spacious yard is too small for Toto. The boy agrees that the creature is indeed quite large. Suddenly, the dragon shrinks to a miniature size, making a cute sound. The girl notes with delight that the dragon has become small. She is touched as she plays with the shrunken Toto, and the boy eagerly reminds her of their trip to the market. A girl enthusiastically chooses baked goods at the market, and a boy with a displeased look reminds her that she needs to buy groceries. She firmly states that if she is going to make the boy cook everything, then she needs to choose as much as possible. The girl suddenly tenses up when she hears her name and becomes wary. A man with red hair appears in front of her, smiling and reminding her of an old meeting. The girl excitedly reports unexpected events, and the boy looks at her in surprise. She remembers that she might have left the gas on and suggests that they check it together. Suddenly, someone grabs her hand, calling her name. A young man with red hair and a smug smile appears in front of her. He addresses the girl, reminding her of their long separation and calling himself her cousin. Irritation flashes in her eyes, because this man was one of the nightmares of her childhood. Little Mia Fortuna, a 5-year-old girl, stands with her head down in the rays of light. Someone older approaches her, threatening to take away even her bread, so that she understands that she should be grateful. Mia, trembling, struggles to utter words of gratitude, while ridicule is heard around her. They laugh at her and humiliate her, calling her an orphan and a beggar, and she runs away. The girl runs, realizing that the environment in which she lives shapes her personality. Despite her adult consciousness, finding herself in the powerless position of a child, she feels completely helpless. Mia, frightened and holding the bread to her face, flinches as a woman bursts into the room screaming. The girl looks at the accuser in confusion, not understanding why she is suspected of theft. Mia's aunt, Gertrude Murray, angrily reports the brooch missing, blaming her niece. Mia desperately tries to justify herself, but no one listens to her words. A girl in a blue dress enters the room, attracting attention. A sly smile appears on the girl's face, and the stolen brooch sparkles in her hand. The girl, her face frightened, freezes upon hearing the accusation. A thief's cry is heard directed at her, and memories of daily humiliation and abuse torment her. Mia is stunned by the news that she will now have to work in a factory. A woman with a cold expression on her face says that her father does not send money, so the girl will have to earn a living herself. Over a cup of tea, a dismissive reproach is heard that she cannot even be hired as a servant because she is no good for anything. Mia desperately tries to object, but her voice trembles with fear and resentment. The girl leaves the house after work, wraps herself in a coat, and feels a piercing cold. She walks along a snowy street, surrounded by silence and winter emptiness. Stopping, she looks thoughtfully to the side, immersed in her thoughts. A young man in a cap approaches her and hands her a letter, asking if she is from the mansion. The girl, confused, admits that she cannot read, accepting the envelope. Hearing that the letter was addressed specifically to her, Mia Fortuna, she opened her eyes in surprise. The girl, in desperation, grabs the boy's hand, asking him to read the letter, which she cannot understand herself. The boy, a little embarrassed, begins to read the letter aloud, peering at the lines. It turns out the letter came from her grandfather, who had been trying to contact her, but all attempts were unsuccessful. The girl asks the boy to write back to his grandfather and tell him in detail everything that happened to her. Thanks to this letter, she was able to let go of the past and start a happy life next to her grandfather. Sometime later, a girl in a black dress stands at her grandfather's grave, saying goodbye to him and expressing her sadness. At the cemetery, a woman in a hat approaches a girl in mourning, reminding her of family ties and the past. The woman, feigning sadness, asks why her visit raises questions and justifies her appearance. She remarks with feigned admiration how the girl has changed since their last meeting, while the girl silently holds a portrait of her grandfather. The woman suddenly starts talking about marriage, hinting that it's time for the girl to think about a groom. In passing, she mentions a profitable match with a count with large land holdings. The woman insists that this is a great opportunity, and the girl reacts to her words with surprise and indignation. The woman, with a smug smile, promises to take care of her grandfather's inheritance, confidently taking everything into her own hands. The girl restrains her anger but cannot stand it and sharply demands that he be quiet. Anger builds inside her, and she mentally wishes that her aunt would choke on this inheritance. The aunt asks again in shock, and the girl, without turning around, walks away. The woman shouts after her, demanding that she not leave, but the girl firmly leaves the cemetery. In her thoughts, she admits that she no longer wants to see these people who only pretend to be her relatives. The girl recalls with bewilderment and irritation how her cousin claims that they played together a lot as children. The red-haired guy smiles smugly, assuring her that she also enjoyed their conversation. The girl's memory of her cousin's cruel pranks comes to light, and she angrily lists his bullying. The cousin frivolously justifies his actions, calling them harmless, childish pranks, and the girl can barely contain her anger. The pink-haired boy intervenes sharply, inviting his cousin to try the same pranks on himself. The cousin looks at the boy in surprise, suspecting that Mia has become the kept woman of a rich man, and connects this with her refusal to marry. The red-haired guy, with mockery and aggression, receives a sudden blow to the face. Losing his balance, he falls to the ground with a scream, not expecting such resistance. Against the backdrop of calm, a black boot appears, and an inner voice notes that the guy's face seemed to be asking for punishment. A young man in a formal suit calmly asks the girl if he did everything right while standing among the blooming roses. Mia recognizes someone with surprise and alarm, not expecting him to appear. Someone's hand holds a gift bag, and a question is asked about the unexpected appearance. The young man explains that he went out to buy a cake and asks with bewilderment about the identity of the other man who allowed himself to say unflattering words. The girl indifferently says that he is her relative, but does not mind if he gets it again. Georgie More, having recovered from the blow, asks with pain and bewilderment who is in front of him. Dante reasons that since he was immediately met with fists, it means that there is probably a close relationship between the girl and her relative. The girl accepts the box with the cake in surprise, not understanding why she needs it. Georgie smirks and throws out an insult, provoking the man in the suit. Mia, holding the cake, watches the fight unfold with alarm, realizing that things have gone too far. The insulted guy cries out in despair about his future fame and threatens to complain to the police. Dante looms over his opponent, forcing him to beg for mercy. The man reminds her that she should apologize not to him, but to the girl, who is watching what is happening in confusion. Georgie, looking down in embarrassment, stands uncertainly in front of the girl. He struggles to apologize, clearly feeling awkward. Mia smiles and wonders if he is even capable of saying such words, as she had doubted it before. She comes closer and calls him by name, lightly touching his forehead. The guy reacts indignantly to her touch, not understanding how she dared to do such a thing. Dante, with a cold gaze, reminds the boy of his mistakes, and he quickly agrees, answering fearfully. Georgie, with his head down, awkwardly apologized to the girl for his rudeness and bullying, even recalling the incident with the stairs. He exclaims in irritation that he has already apologized, but receives a sharp blow from the man in the suit. The boy falls to his knees, a dark atmosphere hanging over him. The girl and the man watch in silence. Mia covers her mouth with her hands in surprise and embarrassment, not believing that she just heard Georgie squeal. The man with a soft smile invites the girl to leave here. The girl happily agrees, walking past the guy and stepping on his foot, causing him to cry out in pain. Mia asks what kind of cake was bought and is told it was strawberry, and the red-haired guy suppresses his irritation. Georgie, angry and beaten, threatens that two more will regret it, but hears in response that he is hopeless. Ezekiel reacts with surprise to his adversary's words, stating that he has met many people like him. Ezekiel easily repels his opponent's attack, thinking that no matter how much they are beaten, the essence of such people does not change. The red-haired boy is sent flying into the sky by a powerful blow and is threatened with more serious consequences if he appears again. Mia watches in amazement as a huge fountain of water shoots up after the boy falls. Georgie, choking and coughing, struggles to his feet, outraged by what has happened. The girl covers her mouth with her hands in shock, not believing her eyes. By the fountain, against the backdrop of sun splashes, the company watches the humiliated boy, and the atmosphere is filled with relief and completeness. Ezekiel calmly remarks that he acted fairly. Dante, in a formal suit, says with a slight smile that he was simply doing his duty. Mia looks on with tender gratitude and relief, her eyes shining with joy. The two friends exchange short phrases, and in their thoughts there is gratitude that they managed to avoid awkwardness in front of Georgie today. Memories take the heroine back to the past, when simple childish kindness once gave her a meeting with her grandfather and happiness. Her grandfather's gentle look and warm smile remind her that it was from small acts of kindness that her current life was formed. In the evening, the three walk along a sunset-lit street, discussing dinner and deciding to save the cake for dessert, enjoying the peace and comfort. The next morning, the girl remembers that although she had eaten her fill, the taste of the food Izia had prepared was terrible. Izia enthusiastically takes up cooking using magic, and the girl, in despair, asks him not to resort to magic in the kitchen. Mia regretfully realizes that she was wrong about the new chef's abilities, but decides to trust his promises to train. At this moment, her attention is completely occupied by a mysterious letter found in the mailbox, the meaning of which she cannot understand. A man in dress uniform appears in the garden, and the girl immediately recognizes him as Matthias. She joyfully runs up to him with a letter in her hand, hoping to ask for help. Matthias, with a cold expression on his face, immediately refuses without listening to the request. Mia, confused, notes that she didn't even have time to explain what she wanted. Matthias realizes with displeasure that he is being asked to read the letter out loud and is indignant at such a request. The girl, offended and tired, wonders why this is so difficult for him, but he reluctantly agrees. She notes to herself that he is completely adamant, but she cannot simply let go of such a rare opportunity to talk to him. The heroine decides to ask him just one question, without losing hope of getting an answer. She asks about the philosopher's stone, which she assumes is in Matthias's possession. Mia nervously insists that as the manager she must be aware of the estate's important affairs, standing opposite a man in a white suit in the middle of a blooming garden. Dante looks at her silently, his gaze serious and thoughtful. Amidst the shimmering magic, the philosopher's stone appears, said to be inherited rather than owned, and only a chosen few can use it. The girl is surprised to realize that a man named Matthias also doesn't know where someone important is. Matthias looks down and remains silent, clearly not having an answer. He turns away and walks away, mentally noting that he has wasted too much of his precious time on her, and the girl exclaims after him in confusion. A desperate cry is heard from the facade of the mansion, demanding that everything be explained clearly. Mia irritably wonders if the man has money and is outraged by his unpredictability. At this time, a young man named Dante carefully dries clean dishes, surprising those around him with his activity. The girl offers Dante her help with a smile, and he reacts to her initiative with surprise. Dante politely refuses help, assuring that he can handle it himself. The heroine does not take no for an answer and enthusiastically joins in washing the dishes. The young man advises the girl to rest, but she happily continues to help him in the kitchen. He smiles softly, offering to wash the dishes together. Mia picks up the plate and admits that she would like to ask him for something. She clarifies that we are talking about a letter written in symbols unknown to her. The girl explains that it could be a foreign language or a forgotten script, and asks him to look at the letter, hoping that he will be able to read it. Dante readily agrees to help, accepting the letter from her. The young man, with a serious look, carefully wipes the cup, completely focused on his work. He confidently declares his readiness to fulfill any wish of the hostess, continuing to do the dishes, and the girl watches him nearby. Mia acknowledges his concern with a slight smile, but deep down she feels a lack of confidence. At the table, among exquisite treats, the young man explains that the letter is written in an ancient cipher used by nobles for personal correspondence. He reads a letter addressed to the esteemed manager of the estate and mentions that he is the second generation to hold this position. A flashback shows an image of an elderly man writing a letter to inform him of the important duties of a manager. Among the blooming roses and radiance, a girl appears in an exquisite dress. Her name is Rilke Teresa de Piazza. Someone's hand, holding a pen, writes a letter, which says that one day the new manager will understand the essence of his duty. When opening the letter, some object suddenly falls out of it. A golden four-leaf clover falls onto the table, sparkling among the dishes and treats. Dante notices that it is the badge of the manager who wrote the letter, and notes that it should be kept carefully. Mia looks at the badge in surprise, realizing its importance. The young man explains that the letter turned out to be a simple note about the transfer of affairs and a request to remember the first manager. The heroine notices Rilke's name, Teresa de Piazza, among the antique relics on the mantelpiece. A portrait of a woman in an underground chapel comes to mind, and it becomes clear that this is the first manager. Over a cup of tea, the girl asks Dante if he knows anything about Rilke. Dante confirms that he is familiar with this story. He says that Rilke was once from a royal family, and in the chronicles she is described as a cruel villain who tortured and killed many people. Over time, the name Piazza became a household word and acquired the dark meaning of a bird that devours people. Mia is surprised because the portrait in the chapel said, "Saint of Peace," and she considered her a saint. In the past, this woman was indeed a saint who transmitted divine revelations to people. According to legend, she once made a deal with a demon and turned against people. At the table, Mia doubts what she heard, and the young man remarks that ancient stories are easily distorted. He suggests that perhaps even the most terrible records about her are just lies. Dante smiles and compares the rumors about the witch who commands the black demon to the story of Rilke, and the girl is surprised to hear about the demon. The girl, having thought about it, comes to the conclusion that the historical records about Rilke may also be false. The question arises as to whether there is any evidence left about the descendants of the Piazza family. The answer is that all the heirs were executed, and no one from the family could remain. The image of the last of the royal family, left alone in the old mansion, emerges. Mia admits that when she first arrived here, she also felt a little lonely. The young man asks her with interest whether she was very lonely, and the girl assures her that everything is fine now. She admits with a smile that she no longer feels lonely because now Mr. Dante is by her side. Having finished his tea, he looks at his interlocutor with a slight smile, feeling calm and warmth. Dante, with a gentle smile, promises to be by her side all her life so that she never feels lonely, and a cozy atmosphere reigns at the table with tea and desserts. Mia, crossing her arms, agrees with a slight smile, but there is uncertainty in her voice. Suddenly her eyes widen in surprise, the thought of what was said flashing through her head. She realizes that his words sounded almost like a marriage proposal, and embarrassment shows on her face. The man smiles sincerely, unaware of her inner storm. Mia, blushing, excitedly asks again what exactly he meant. The heroine accidentally spills her tea, awkwardly apologizing, but is told that everything is fine. She offers to clean up after herself, but the young man quickly takes control of the situation, surprising her with his speed. Mia smiles with relief, glad she managed to drink some tea before the incident. Dante carefully wipes the table, mentally confirming that he really does need to be near her. The girl, all blushing, touches her face with her hands, shocked by what is happening. The man says with a gentle smile that he must help her with what she cannot do. The heroine freezes with her hands near her face, suddenly realizing something important. Her gaze becomes thoughtful. She comes to the conclusion that the young man is simply worried about the order in the house, and her facial expression changes to slightly irritated. The girl looks away with a tired and dissatisfied look, immersed in her thoughts. Suddenly she is overcome with panic. She begins to get nervous and blush, not knowing how to react to the situation. Dante looks at her in surprise, and she, embarrassed, enthusiastically declares that she will entrust him with all the household chores. Mia suddenly remembers the urgent matter and leaves hastily to hide her embarrassment. The girl runs out of the room in a hurry, saying on the go that he can handle the rest himself, and the young man remains confused. He looks after her in confusion, not understanding what happened. The corridor is silent, filled with light and the echo of her quick steps. Stopping at the door, the girl admits that Mr. Dante is becoming a real disaster for her peace of mind, and almost gives in to her feelings. She remembers that she initially didn't want to get involved with him, but now she doesn't recognize herself. Her gaze reflects confusion and inner turmoil. The heroine stops in the corridor, illuminated by soft sunlight, as if thinking about something important. The evening silence envelops the house, and through the window one can see a cozy room filled with peace. The knight and the young man's gaze meet, and a tense conversation begins between them. The young man doubts that the girl is capable of what they say about her, and shares his thoughts with the knight. Ezekiel reminds him that Hontail only obeys those stronger than him, and looks at him with reproach. The knight, still unsure, tries to object, but his words sound uncertain. In a purple whirlwind of emotions, the girl gets lost in her own feelings, without even realizing it. Ezekiel warns against judging by appearances, for true strength can be hidden. The knight, slightly embarrassed, confirms his words, pressing his hand to his chest. In a sunny clearing, a boy and a knight are standing under a tree when they hear a scream. Mia desperately tries to drag the little dragon away from the garden bed, protecting her cabbage. The boy, watching what is happening, notices that the girl has put her soul into her garden. The heroine, looking tired, pulls the little dragon away from the cabbage, not giving in to his pitiful look. She sternly warns the dragon that if he doesn't stop being naughty, he'll be in trouble. Ezekiel suddenly feels magical energy. His gaze becomes serious. In a comical fit, the girl flicks the dragon on the forehead to teach him a lesson for his pranks. The dragon was in complete shock, not believing that someone dared to hit him, because even his father did not allow such a thing. The dragon flies away, and the girl threatens that next time the punishment will be harsher. The knight gently places his hand on the boy's shoulder, trying to calm him down and assuring him that nothing serious had happened. The boy, with a determined look, clenches his fist filled with magic and warns not to relax. The knight is about to say something, but he is interrupted and looks confused. Mia indignantly reports that the dragon ate all the cabbage and demands action from the knight. The knight sheepishly admits that he should have kept a closer eye on the dragon. The heroine calmly explains that the owner is always responsible for a pet, and the knight clarifies what she means by responsibility. The girl, with a serious expression, demands that all the eaten heads of cabbage be restored by tomorrow, and the knight in the helmet is stunned by her words. She smiles and admits that she was joking when she suggested simply buying new seedlings and replanting them. The knight, struck by her words, repeats the hostess with embarrassment, and his comrade is surprised at how quickly he fell for the bait again. Mia laughs, and the knight looks at her with delight, calling her mistress. A man approaches them and asks worriedly if anyone near them has used magic. The heroine calmly replies that no one used magic, perhaps he imagined it. The characters' glances intersect, tension and uncertainty hang in the air. Ezekiel looks puzzled but tries to hide her feelings. Dante announces with a smile that the hostess has guests. The girl with green eyes is surprised because she wasn't expecting anyone. Two people appear on the threshold, their shoes and clothes standing out against the background. The new arrivals introduce themselves as an aunt and uncle, their appearance shrouded in mystery. A look of alarm appears on her face as she realizes what is happening. Clenching her fist, she mentally wonders why these people are here. A tense pause hangs between the heroes. The girl lowers her gaze. The servant notices her confusion and offers to drive away the uninvited guests, but she only reacts with confusion. Mia firmly says that she wants to meet with the guests to ask them not to come again, and the servant agrees with her decision. Despite the words spoken, she feels insecure when left alone with them. There is silence between them and the girl looks depressed. She shifts hesitantly from foot to foot, unsure of what to do next. The heroine anxiously asks the servant to go with her, and he looks at her carefully. She holds his sleeve tightly, sensing that the upcoming event will be quite interesting. His gaze reflects determination and inner support, as if he is ready to be there no matter what. He smiles softly, reminding her of his promise not to leave her alone. His hands are shaking slightly, but he tries to stay calm for her sake. Mia looks at him with surprise and slight embarrassment, feeling warmth and support. A boy with pink hair watches from afar behind them, following them with his gaze. His face expresses silent alarm and wariness. He remains to the side, watching what is happening. The huge mansion sparkles in the rays of the sun, striking with its grandeur and size. A woman in a purple dress and a man appear at the gate, discussing the need to take the girl with them. The heroine decisively goes out to the guests together with her servant, asking them directly about the reason for their visit. The woman in purple greets her with feigned concern, welcoming her as if she were family. Mia remains wary and repeats her question, wanting to know the true purpose of their appearance. The guests explain that they learned of her whereabouts thanks to a recent meeting with a mutual friend, and hint at an important conversation. Smiles affably, trying to remain calm in front of the guests. The woman in purple theatrically takes offense, reproaching the girl for her coldness. She continues to complain, recalling the difficulties she allegedly faced while raising her. A look of surprise and confusion appears on the woman's face when her words do not produce the expected effect. Mia and her servant react tensely to the announcement of family ties, feeling an internal protest. The girl can hardly contain her emotions, repeating the word family to herself, as if not believing its sincerity. A look of determination appears in his eyes when the situation gets tense. The woman in purple tries to end the conversation with a smile, but is interrupted. Dante stands between the girl and the guest, firmly defending his hostess. The woman notices with irritation that, judging by his clothes, he is just a servant. He calmly and confidently declares that they live together without hiding his feelings. The guests are stunned and cannot hide their surprise at what they hear. Mia panics and tries to explain the situation, blushing and losing her composure, mentally clarifying that her assistant simply lives in the house. The woman in purple suspiciously asks if there is more to their relationship than just work. The heroine, with cold determination, makes it clear that she is not obliged to answer such questions. The woman irritably demands that he watch his words and reminds him of family ties. The young man calmly sums things up by suggesting that they don't meet again. Suddenly, the woman grabs the girl's hand, not wanting to let her go so easily. The woman, with a forced smile, reports that the count she spoke of earlier still wishes to marry the girl. Mia understands with irritation the true reason for her relative's sudden visit. She angrily pushes the woman's hand away, not wanting to submit to someone else's will. A determination appears in her gaze as she realizes that they only need her for their own benefit. Images of a grinning man and a girl with a butterfly in her hair appear in the background, hinting at their involvement in what is happening. The woman in purple is furious, not hiding her disappointment and anger. Mia stands with a grim and determined expression on her face, not hiding her disappointment. The count sarcastically advises that they first cure their husband of his gambling addiction if they want to save the house. He accuses them of drunkenness, gambling, and extravagance, believing that this is what is destroying the family's future. In a fit of anger, the man swings at the girl, not holding back his emotions. Dante quickly intervenes to stop the aggression. He firmly reminds her that he warned her not to come closer, and the woman, in a panic, rushes to her husband. The man writhes in pain, and the woman, in panic and indignation, demands an explanation for what happened. Mia cautiously reminds that she warned about the consequences. The aunt angrily accuses her of insolence and claims that willful women always cause nothing but trouble. Against the backdrop of a sunny day, there is a confident promise that a solution will definitely be found. Dante looks forward with a firm determination, ready to protect his mistress. The heroine, confused and surprised, realizes that she did not expect such a development of events. Mia reacts to what is happening with surprise and slight confusion, not understanding what the adults are leading to. The aunt in purple, with feigned regret, announces that the girl cannot marry without the consent of her guardians. They look at her with anticipation, and Mia feels the pressure growing. A protest against church laws flares up inside the heroine, and she fears that she will be taken away against her will. Dante, surprised, clarifies that he is talking about a year of waiting. He says with a smile that he respects the girl's choice and does not allow adults to impose their will on her. A woman with red hair screams in rage, her face contorted with anger and her hand extended threateningly forward. The girl with green eyes desperately demands that the quarrel be stopped, but the enraged lady sharply pulls her back, not allowing her to intervene. A girl with long hair and a young man stand next to each other. She indignantly defends herself, and he watches what is happening with an imperturbable face. The aunt sneers with disdain and distrust, questioning the status of a man dressed as a servant. The count whispers something to the woman, and she listens with suspicion, wondering about the origin of the girl's money. Dante looks forward with a serious and slightly sad expression, remaining calm amidst the escalating conflict. The woman with red hair looks away thoughtfully and suspiciously, holding back her emotions. Her hand in the purple sleeve clenches into a fist, and an invitation to a ball at the palace pops into her thoughts. The woman with a fan on her face smiles slyly, making insidious plans for the upcoming ball. Dante and Mia stand side by side, the question of how he will introduce her to high society as a groom hanging in the air. The heroine, in confusion and anxiety, ponders whether she is worthy of being presented as the nobleman's bride. The man and woman's gazes meet, and a tense silence filled with hidden intentions falls between them. The woman in the purple dress watches the girl suspiciously, promising to find out the truth soon. Her gaze becomes intense, and there is a feeling of mistrust in the air. Dante and Mia walk down the garden path, leaving behind the tense conversation. They walk side by side among the green trees, and the atmosphere between them becomes lighter. He expresses his satisfaction with a gentle smile that he was able to help. Mia smiles shyly, trying not to inconvenience her companion. Two people are walking side by side, discussing that one of them has long wanted to visit this place, although he has never been there before. The young man calmly explains that he has never had a partner, which is why he has never attended a ball, and the girl is surprised by this confession. Mia smiles and doesn't believe his words, assuring him that he must have a lot of fans. Dante, looking at his steps, admits that now he really wants to go to the ball. His face is illuminated by a sincere and happy smile filled with light and joy. The heroine looks at him with surprise and slight excitement, feeling a change in her feelings. The girl with green eyes shyly admits that she has never been to a ball before. Dante says with a warm smile that he is honored to share this first ball with her. Mia, folding her arms, asks in surprise if there will be rumors about their engagement. She fidgets nervously with her fingers as the man asks if she wants him to be her partner, and she quickly denies it. The man, with a slight smile, promises that he will not wear an apron to the ball. He appears at the ball in his usual outfit, and the girl can barely contain her embarrassment and delight in her thoughts. The heroine laughs and jokes, and the young man looks at her with a slight smile, proposing to get engaged for real. She asks again in surprise, not believing what she heard, her eyes shining with surprise. Dante looks at her with tenderness and thoughtfulness. His gaze becomes soft and warm. Mia, smiling mischievously, catches up with him against the backdrop of a bright sky and green trees. In a humorous scene, she promises to make a mess of the house so that he will always need her help. The hero smiles shyly, slightly covering his mouth with his hand, and admits that it's not about cleaning at all. The lady asks with surprise and slight anxiety what the real reason is, expecting an explanation. Dante and Mia stand opposite each other in the garden, discussing the possibility of a fake engagement of convenience. She ponders thoughtfully whether it is possible to just get engaged to the main character, fearing future changes. He gently suggests that she abandon the idea if it makes her uncomfortable and promises not to rush into a decision. The heroine recalls the moment when he asked her to fulfill one of his wishes as an apology, and realizes that this is exactly what he is talking about. She enthusiastically agrees, deciding that they will be able to surprise everyone at the ball, and if they find true love later, they can always break off the fictitious engagement. He assures her with a smile that if a rival appears, he will not spare him, and the girl reacts to such words with surprise. An expression of bewilderment and slight shock appears on the girl's face. Her thoughts are full of questions. In a joking manner, she reminds him that he can't just destroy people, and he suggests that they go home. Dante suggests that they forget about the conversation if the idea of destruction seems too radical to her. The heroine anxiously thinks that if she doesn't fulfill his wish now, then later he might ask for the impossible. She resolutely agrees to fulfill his wish immediately to avoid unexpected requests in the future. A satisfied smile appears on the man's lips, and a feeling of agreement and harmony hangs in the air. Under the spring sky, the two look at each other tenderly, their gazes full of trust and warmth. The little red dragon purrs contentedly when stroked. Flowers and joy swirl around him. In the garden, a girl plays with a dragon, and a man calmly reads a newspaper at a table, enjoying the peaceful morning. In a dark scene, a hand with a dagger reaches out to a man, filling the atmosphere with danger and tension. The man remains unperturbed, a mysterious half-smile lighting his face, despite the impending threat. Mia strokes the dragon thoughtfully, thinking about the possibility of meeting someone at the founding celebration. She worries that if Dante meets the main character, he might fall in love with her, as the plot dictates. A fear arises in her thoughts that everyone else will gradually become distant too. Overwhelmed by loneliness, she feels that she will be left alone again in the huge hall. The heroine smiles, watching the contented dragon, and decides that first she needs to survive the upcoming ball. She excitedly asks Mr. Matthias to teach her social manners so that she can be ready for the important event. A young man with blue hair and glasses looks up from his newspaper, looking at his interlocutor in surprise. At a table in the garden, the girl confesses that she has to go to a ball and is worried that she won't understand the conversations of the aristocrats. In his imagination, a girl with shining eyes begs him to teach her manners, and the man remains unperturbed. He agrees to start with a simple question, preparing to test her knowledge with an example. In the imaginary scene, an elegant lady offers a treat, expecting a polite response. The girl answers too simply in her thoughts, realizing that her reaction is far from secular standards. Lord Matthias, in full dress uniform, reflects on how good manners and refinement are not always innate, and compares this to a girl's inability to clean. At the table in the garden, he informs the girl that her answer was incorrect. The heroine recalls that the correct answer should have been a compliment, but in reality her interlocutor was only subtly ridiculing her village origins. The girl is surprised to realize that they were actually hinting at her. She reflects that her interlocutor will not be able to humiliate her without humiliating herself, and complains about the need to think through every word at the table. The young man explains that aristocratic speech consists of politeness and the ability to read between the lines, especially at balls, and advises listening carefully to others to avoid falling into disfavor. Mia quickly walks away from the table, deciding to find out the information she needs from someone else. She notices a knight standing nearby and is surprised. She happily addresses the knight by name, hoping for his help. The knight explains that he cannot give advice, as he has not moved in high society. The heroine is a little disappointed because she considered him the best teacher. The knight apologizes for not being able to help, and the girl thanks him and maintains a good mood. She looks thoughtfully into the distance, wondering who else is left on the list. Against a backdrop of golden flowers, two men appear, one with long blonde hair and glasses, the other with dark hair and a confident smile. Ezekiel, with golden eyes, stands in the hallway, arms crossed and looking forward in surprise. Mia happily addresses the young man, noting his encyclopedic knowledge and confidence. Ezekiel agrees with her words, recognizing their truth. He, with a satisfied smile, mentally admires a certain tower master, calling him brilliant and magnificent. The girl enthusiastically asks the young man how she should prepare for the ball, beaming with hope and anticipation. In a luxurious living room, the girl confesses that she does not have a suitable dress for the ball. She smiles and invites the young man to go with her and help him choose an outfit, as she needs advice. The young man agrees with a slight smile, showing his willingness to help. Suddenly, he becomes thoughtful, realizing that he is giving in to the mood and does not understand why he agrees. Mia asks in surprise if he is really that busy when she hears his refusal. On an elegant table rises a mountain of madeleines, towards which a hand points. The heroine is surprised to realize that there is not coal on the table, but baked madeleines. She asks if the young man has decided to take up baking, and he admits that it was easier with bread. She remarks that with magic everything would be easier, but the young man refuses to use it. He decides to cook the food only with his own hands, holding one of the madeleines in his hand. There is determination in his eyes, because he does not allow himself to lose. Ezekiel clenches his fist and speaks with determination, and the girl behind him is surprised by his attitude. Mia looks at him in surprise, not believing what is happening. Ezekiel turns away, his face hidden, and the atmosphere becomes tense. Footsteps appear on the floor, as if someone is about to leave. The heroine takes the young man by the hand, trying to stop him. She smiles softly, reminding us that everyone makes mistakes and learns from them. A young man with a serious expression holds a girl's hand, thinking that real failure is hiding mistakes and giving up. The girl, surrounded by flowers, smiles sincerely and warmly, as if supporting him with words. A close-up of the young man's face shows his surprise and thoughtfulness. The heroes exchange barbed remarks, and the girl is perplexed why her attempt to console did not work. The young man asks her with a touch of irony if she is giving up, crossing her arms over her chest. Mia, unable to bear it any longer, runs away, leaving behind an atmosphere of slight resentment. Ezekiel stands thoughtfully with his head bowed, his face hidden by strands of hair. He looks up, his eyes reflecting determination and a slight sadness. The heroine, in an empty room, is surprised to realize that now she will have to cope alone, because only the mysterious Eluard remains. Suddenly, a smiling man with long blonde hair appears, greeting her enthusiastically. Mia, confused, asks where he came from, not expecting him to appear. Eluard looks at her with a mysterious smile, his image filled with charm and slight irony. The heroine looks in surprise at the man with long blonde hair who mentions her interest in noble etiquette. Eluard leans towards the girl, showing friendliness and interest in the conversation. She suggests with a mischievous smile that if he teaches her anything, it will only be how to fry sinners in a hellish frying pan. The man winks and confidently raises his finger, as if promising something unusual. Mia looks at the man thoughtfully, wondering if she should trust him this time. Eluard, standing in front of the girl, talks about how people are always waiting for someone else to stumble. A man with long blonde hair asks a girl a question with a smile, and she listens to him attentively, waiting for an answer. He asks if she's really interested in learning how to avoid mistakes, and looks at her with a slight mystery. A scroll shrouded in magical light appears in his hand, and he promises to reveal the secret. Eluard unrolls a long scroll with rules, and the girl watches in surprise. Mia is stunned by what is happening, not expecting such a turn of events. The man looks at her with a sly smile, confidently demonstrating his knowledge and willingness to teach. The heroine anxiously reflects on what it means to use Eluard and inquires about the terms of the contract. With a smile, he offers her soul as payment, and Mia reacts with silent discontent. The heroine wearily agrees that this is a standard demonic package, and the man enthusiastically confirms his commitment to the classics. She reflects on what was first a marriage proposal, now a contract, and wonders if she owes him something from past lives. Eluard assures her that she has never done anything bad to him, and a pause falls between them. He admits that he just wants to be with her forever, hinting at eternity, and offers to sign a contract. Mia resolutely refuses to sign the contract, and the man with a smile asks to take him to the ball as a partner. She says with slight embarrassment that she already has a partner. The man again offers to sign a contract, but the girl stubbornly refuses and does not agree to make him her partner. The heroine is perplexed as to why she has to choose between the two, while the man insists on his desire to be her partner. Another young man appears, and the girl turns to him with excitement. A man with long blonde hair remarks with a sly smile that since the engagement is fictitious, it doesn't matter who will be the partner at the ball. Eluard confidently states that he was the one introduced to the hostess's relatives, and therefore considers himself her logical partner, and then adds that he will slightly alter the memories of those around him for the sake of everyone's happiness. Dante reminds him that it is impossible to interfere with human thoughts without a contract, and the blonde man ironically acknowledges his knowledge and calls him a generalist. A tense atmosphere arises between the two men, and the girl watches their confrontation with bewilderment. Dante, restraining his emotions, agrees to the proposed option. Eluard, with a sly smile, announces that the one whose outfit the hostess chooses for the ball will become her partner. He is surprised by the girl's imagination, and then clarifies that she still doesn't have a dress for the ball. A man with long blonde hair says with a smile that simplicity makes the hostess charming, and the girl in response feels slightly insulted. Mia invites two men to help her choose a dress for the ball, promising to be grateful for their help. Dante looks at her with slight confusion, thinking about the situation. Eluard happily announces a meeting at the boutique, quickly disappearing, and the girl, confused, tries to stop him. Mia is confused and asks herself what is going on, and only one of the men remains next to her. Dante looks at her with slight concern and attention, watching her reaction. The heroine, with shining eyes, recalls that she simply asked the man about noble etiquette for the ball. The young man asks with surprise why she is already giving someone else a nickname, and she justifies herself by saying that his name is too long and inconvenient. She smiles and suggests that he come up with a short nickname, addressing him by his first name. Mia thoughtfully goes through the options, trying to shorten his name to one syllable, but admits it's not easy. Dante looks at her tenderly, considering his name to be the best of all that he knows. A light, warm smile filled with hidden joy appears on his face. With confidence and a slight smile, he says that he knows about his victory, looking at his owner. A fair-haired man greets guests at the entrance, announcing that he has rented this place for today, but suddenly notices something unexpected. Three people meet on a city street, and the dark-haired man turns to the pink-haired boy in surprise, asking why he is there. Ezekiel sheepishly explains that he has run out of baking ingredients. He passionately declares that he could not allow his companion to choose a tasteless outfit, so he came himself. The girl reminds that attending the ball at the founding festival is obligatory for all nobles, emphasizing the importance of the event. A young man and a young woman are walking down the street, reflecting on someone's indifference, and a slight bewilderment reigns between them. The blond man with glasses smiles mysteriously, as if he is preparing something unusual. The girl tries on strange costumes, first black, symbolizing dominance, then white, reminiscent of an angel, and feels uncomfortable. Tired and dissatisfied, she dreams of returning home, and her companion cheerfully suggests real outfit options. The girl appears in luxurious dresses, amazed by their beauty and the atmosphere around her. Exhausted by the long fitting, she hopes that this is the last outfit and asks about it with relief. The blond man, with a satisfied smile, offers to try on another outfit, and the girl wearily agrees. The girl, dressed in yet another dress, reflects on the demon's poor taste and her fatigue, while the young man confidently declares that his options are better. Ezekiel looks on with irritation and impatience, waiting for it all to end. The dark-haired guy with a cold gaze reminds of the crown princess's order, not allowing her to retreat. The man in the brown suit looks silently at the young man, holding another outfit in his hands. Ezekiel is surprised and stunned by what is happening, not expecting such a turn of events. The two heroes' gazes meet, filled with tension and determination. Ezekiel explains that their task is to prevent a catastrophe as soon as something dangerous appears from the girl. He anxiously asks whether his interlocutor will be able to kill the girl. The dark-haired man asks if it will be possible to do this instantly when the threat awakens inside her. The man doubts, asking if there will be any doubt left. The pink-haired boy, a little hesitantly, replies that he can handle it. The girl smiles sincerely and brightly, surrounded by delicate flowers and soft light. Ezekiel looks at her with slight confusion, at a loss for words. A girl in a unicorn costume appears in the room, causing laughter and surprise among those around her. The blond man offers to stand as the unicorn's front legs with a smile, and the girl reacts with bewilderment. Ezekiel ponders his thoughts thoughtfully, feeling slightly bewildered. The dark-haired man assures her that the future predicted by the princess will not come true and asks her not to worry, while the young man asks again in surprise. With a slight worry in his eyes, he assures that everything will become clear with time. A girl in a pink dress shines against a background of flowers, shyly adjusting her hair. The two young men watch her with surprise and admiration, not hiding their emotions. The blonde enthusiastically notes that the girl looks perfect, and she notices that the dress is quite heavy. The blonde winks and promises that in this outfit, the prize for the best dressed will be hers. The girl doubts whether she will be able to dance in this dress, but she is assured that it is not that heavy. In the room, they discuss the choice of dress, remembering that the girl has not yet tried on the outfit chosen by Mr. Dante, and they begin to look for it. The young man hands the girl a dress with a slight smile, preparing for her reaction. Ezekiel admits that he thought the girl was a fake partner and is surprised by all the fuss, and then questions his presence. He explains that he stayed to talk and suddenly declares that he wants the dress for himself. The girl, having tried on the unusual outfit, happily admits that she really likes it. The blonde man is confused, while the man in the brown suit calmly notes that he expected this outcome. The girl admits that she likes her current outfit better, but promises to wear the one that Al chose for her if the opportunity arises. The blonde is surprised that the dress has been chosen, and the man explains that he chose what suits the girl best. The man sums it up with restraint, considering the argument over. The blonde admits defeat with a smile and offers to become a better partner. Mia exhales tiredly and suggests that everyone return home. He reports that Al admitted defeat and left when asked about his whereabouts. The heroine reflects on her choice, admitting that the dress Mr. Dante chose turned out to be incredibly good. The young man assures that everything will be fine with the demon because they love to be humiliated, but the girl finds this strange. Dante smiles sincerely and brightly, pleased with what is happening. It's time to learn social etiquette and the latest trends, but the girl thinks it's too difficult. There are 12 dances to learn for the banquet, and there is very little time left, so the training is carried out at an accelerated pace. Ezekiel is forced to teach the girl, although he himself did not expect such a fate. 2 days before the event, the girl undergoes endurance and flexibility training, exhausting herself from the number of laps. The next stage is self-defense training, where she fights with a dummy under the supervision of instructors. Suddenly, Mia is surprised to notice that she has broken the wooden target, without understanding how this happened. She wonders why she needs to learn to wield a sword when she only expected to master secular skills. The young man explains that she needs to strengthen her character and increase her endurance in order to resist the nobles. Despite being tired, the girl agrees to continue training, and her mentor encourages her with a smile. In front of a majestic mansion stand a knight in armor and a young man with pink hair, illuminated by a soft light. Ezekiel and the knight look puzzled, their faces expressing slight impatience. Mia watches them from the window, thinking about what is happening. She walks out into the garden, surrounded by flowers, her face glowing with calm and confidence. The heroine chooses a light dress because comfort is most important to her, and she does not want to dance in heavy clothes. She thinks with a smile about how Mr. Dante always guesses her wishes, and a voice is heard behind the door, announcing his arrival. A man with long blonde hair and a soft smile enters the room, surrounded by warm light. His gaze suddenly becomes surprised when he notices something important. He looks closely at the girl in the green dress and notes how well this outfit suits her. Mia smiles happily, and the man admits that someone else knows her better than him. Against a backdrop of flowers, a box opens to reveal elegant earrings sparkling with blue stones. The girl carefully puts on the earrings, her green eyes shining in anticipation. Mia looks at the man with long blonde hair in surprise, suddenly hearing his voice in her head. Al winks with a smile, showing that everything is happening thanks to his decoration. Mia, slightly embarrassed, realizes that she can now communicate mentally if something remains unclear. They exchange humorous remarks, and the girl admits for the first time that he looks like a real servant. Their conversation continues, and the girl notes that he was of little use before, and he is slightly offended by her words. At this moment, an elegant man in a dark suit appears, his face lit up by a calm smile. The heroine admires the elegance of the man in the suit, and he explains that he chose the outfit to match her dress. She looks at the hand extended to her in surprise, preparing for the upcoming event. Dante takes her hand with a warm smile, creating an atmosphere of trust and calm. A knight in armor approaches them, attracting attention with his sudden appearance. The knight promises to deliver the girl safe and sound, causing her slight bewilderment. Suddenly, a huge red dragon appears before them, shrouded in smoke and glow. The girl stands face to face with the knight in armor, feeling a tense anticipation. She is surprised to learn that they will have to fly on a dragon, because this is her first ball. Dante, with such a spectacular appearance, no one would dare look down on her. The girl is confused as to how people will react to her appearance riding a dragon. Remembering the years of loneliness, she nevertheless decides to take on an unusual adventure. Together with the knight, she sits on the back of the red dragon, ready to fly towards a new experience. Al smiles and says goodbye, promising to meet in the banquet hall. He waves goodbye, remaining on the ground as the others prepare to leave. The girl and the knight, sitting on the back of the red dragon, receive instructions for a soft landing. She is surprised to notice that the others chose to drive rather than fly on the dragon. The knight confidently announces the takeoff, and the dragon begins to rise into the sky. At this time, a car with other heroes rushes along the road, sparkling against the backdrop of a waterfall of light. The luxurious banquet hall exudes an atmosphere of celebration and anticipation. Suddenly, the guests look up in amazement and fear, not understanding what is happening. A bright flash and a powerful blow shake the hall, forcing people to take cover from danger. Mia, in a panic, and the knight, covered in sweat, suddenly appear at the scene. She realizes with relief that she is alive, although she had already mentally said goodbye to life. Turning around, she notices that the roof of the hall is destroyed and cannot believe her eyes. Due to adverse weather conditions, the landing was unsuccessful, and traces of destruction were left on the ground. The knight considered the possibility of compensation for the damage, but decided that his services to the Empire would allow him to ignore it. Mia sighs in relief as a young man and a dragon appear nearby, attracting the attention of those around her. Wet and battered, the heroes stand together, discussing the possibility of swimming in the lake. The heroine notes that what is happening is little different from reality, recalling how they were suddenly thrown into this situation. Ezekiel reproaches the knight for not protecting himself with an aura, and the knight admits that he hasn't flown for a long time and has forgotten about it. Mia looks in shock at the knight, who apologetically hands her the fish as compensation. Elle approaches her, noticing her appearance and justifying herself with a storm. She rushes to assure everyone that she will fix everything and looks determined. He offers her a document with a smile, and she reacts thoughtfully, wondering if they were too noisy when landing. Dante notes that after such a spectacular appearance, all eyes will be focused only on her. Mia asks in surprise if this is true, and he confidently confirms it. A girl with a beaming smile greets guests, trying to make a good impression. A group of people in the room look at each other, unsure how to respond to her enthusiasm. Realizing her failure, she slumps her shoulders, and her companion suggests they go inside. The heroine looks at her companion with sadness, feeling disappointed. She agrees, mentally dreaming of delicious food and rest. The whole company enters a luxurious hall, where they are greeted with surprise. A bright woman with red hair appears in the hall and unexpectedly compliments the main character. She hides her smile behind her fan, realizing that Mia truly belongs to the nobility. Mia mentally confirms her status and asks not to bother her about this anymore. The red-haired lady calls Mia heartless and is about to introduce her to Lord Draxler's son. The woman with the fan explains to Mia how noble the young man's family is and how closely they are connected to the church. Mia is surprised to hear that the church blesses this union because she doesn't even consider herself a believer. A man with a stern look and a thick beard, dressed in luxurious clothes with fur trim, appears in the hall. Mia looks at the stranger in confusion, not understanding where he came from. The man introduces himself as Mia's fiancé and admits that he would not like to marry the girl chosen for him. Inwardly, Mia irritably wishes that this man would simply disappear from her sight. She indignantly tries to stop what is happening, not understanding who gave him the right to act like this. A young man appears in the background of the entire scene, carefully watching the development of events. The man in the fur cape looks at his interlocutor with interest, remembering that he has seen him somewhere before. The young man formally names the general and his rank, surprising those present. The general admits that he did not expect to meet this man here. Dante clarifies that the general just called himself Lady Fortuna's fiancé, emphasizing the importance of what he said. The general clenches his fist, mentally repeating about the hero's bride. He angrily declares that he cannot simply back down. Dante declares with determination that he is ready to become the second groom if the lady agrees, and the girl looks at him in confusion. Inside herself, Mia wonders with bewilderment and irony about the sanity of what is happening. A tall, blond man, smiling and raising his hand, confidently states that this option is impossible. He continues to shine with charm, creating an atmosphere of lightness and confidence around himself. Mia thinks with tired irony that this man has started his usual hurdy-gurdy again. The knight and the boy with pink hair notice that there are still reserve candidates standing behind them and ask that this be taken into account. The man looks on silently, his face expressing thoughtfulness and tension. The girl watches the man in surprise and alarm, who is clenching his fist, not understanding what is happening. The man suddenly breaks into a wide smile, his laughter filling the room with light and confidence. The heroine, confused and slightly irritated, cannot understand what they want from her. She mentally notes that the man is too intrusive and regrets what happened. The man, with a serious look, declares his intentions and asks her to explain why he is not right for her so that everything can be fixed. The girl begins to explain the reason for her refusal. Her voice sounds uncertain. She calls the man a walking, hairy disaster with indignation and despair. He hears that he has fur like a mammoth and looks puzzled. Mia adds that he could heat the entire mansion single-handedly without coal. She gestures with refusal, stating that he does not pass her climate control. The general slumps his shoulders, his face expressing complete disappointment and despondency. He holds his face in confusion, not knowing how to react to the girl's words. She also thinks with pride about her hair, considering it her second heart and a source of perfection. Mia realizes with relief and weariness that their story is over, although, in her opinion, it never even began. The general walks away with a slight smile, leaving the girl and allowing her to look for another groom. The girl's parents watch what is happening in confusion, not understanding what to do next. The father whispers to the mother that they need to somehow persuade the count to change the situation. The woman is worried that if the engagement falls through, she will have to return all the gifts. The parents, in a panic, rush after the departing count, begging him to stop. The girl hopes with relief that this man will not appear in her life again. A multitude of guests gather in the luxurious hall, and the girl is surprised by the spaciousness around her. She notices that her companion looks unusually thoughtful and asks the reason. Dantes, with a serious expression, shares the feeling that something is wrong. Mia looks at her companion in surprise, who assures her that he is not gloomy at all, but simply expressing dissatisfaction. She notes to herself that his sullen face even looks cute, and wonders what he is unhappy about. New characters appear in the hall: a man with long blonde hair, a knight in armor, and a young man with pink hair. Mia's companion gives her a thumbs up, reminding her that he is her official fiancé, and asks why she acknowledged others as fiancés as well. He sadly asks if he alone is not enough for her. Al admits with a smile that he was the one who caused all this fuss. The young man suspiciously asks the girl if she is considering other candidates, and she responds with indignation at his words. He feels insulted, comparing himself to useless men, and the girl is perplexed because she did not ask anyone for anything. Suddenly, he agrees with her arguments, admitting that she is right. Nearby, Ezekiel and the armored knight are puzzled as to why they even agreed to all this. The boy says with displeasure that he was not at all delighted with what was happening. The heroine reflects that this was the fastest way to resolve the situation, although an ordinary person would probably have refused such an offer. The armored knight hopefully reflects that he should be at least a little higher in the ranking than the demon. Elle asks with a smile if the demon knight is insulting the demon knight, and he explains that he simply considers his rank higher. The knight confidently declares that the concept of last place does not exist in his dictionary. An argument ensues between the knight and the others about who deserves to be first, and the girl wonders why they are arguing over such nonsense. Mia notices with alarm that Dante looks upset. Dante looks away thoughtfully, not believing his thoughts. The girl suddenly feels her heart begin to beat faster, and her cheeks become flushed. She looks around in surprise, as if something important had just happened. The ball begins in the hall, and couples dance smoothly to the music. The girl and her companion exchange glances, preparing for a conversation. The young man, slightly embarrassed, addresses her, his voice sounding soft and sincere. A barely noticeable but happy smile appears on her face. The heroine agrees with a joyful smile, her face glowing with happiness. At this moment, someone stops to attract attention. Two men approach the girl, one of whom clearly wants to say something. Dante looks ahead with anxiety and determination, preparing for an important conversation. He reminds his opponent that it is customary to dance the first dance only with your partner. Al, with a sly smile, proposes an unusual plan to become the girl's date at the ball. The young man, with a cold gaze, rejects the proposed plan, offering an alternative in which the rival must die. Tension flares up again between the two men, and the girl reacts tiredly to their latest argument. One of them suggests giving the girl the right to choose who she will dance the first dance with, and she asks again in surprise. Elle confirms with a smile that the choice is indeed hers. He looks at the girl with a soft smile. waiting for her decision. The second contender also smiles, hoping for her choice. Mia stood frozen in indecision, her heart beating faster and faster, her eyes full of excitement. She looks at the two men waiting for her decision, confused, not knowing what to do. Inwardly, she wonders if she has to make this choice right now. The men insist that her opinion is the most important thing and suggest that she simply choose one of them if it's so difficult. The heroine panics and realizes that she cannot make up her mind and does not know what to do. At that moment, someone decisively takes her hand, interrupting her doubts. The girl, unable to bear the tension, smiles and suggests that the three of them dance to avoid having to choose. Both gentlemen react with surprise to her unexpected decision, not knowing how to feel about it. Al categorically states that he wants to dance only with her and not with his rival. In the end, he agrees to give up the first dance but asks to keep the second, to which Mia hastily agrees. With a slight smile, she invites her companion to dance while the music is still playing. Dante accepts her invitation with surprise and slight excitement. He admits with a smile that instead of accompanying the girl, he himself found himself under her care, and she looks at him with slight irritation. Mia mischievously reminds him that it was she who invited him to her first dance. He thanks her, but insists that he cannot allow all the responsibility to fall on her shoulders, offering to lead the dance himself. She agrees with relief, not intending to refuse such an offer. The heroine admits that she can't dance and may step on her feet, apologizing in advance for any possible mistakes. Her partner assures her that everything is fine, and she looks at him with surprise and relief. The man looks at the girl with a soft smile, and a festive atmosphere reigns in the room. The couple is spinning in a dance, the girl is surprised and a little embarrassed, and the light fills the hall. They continue to dance, looking at each other with tenderness, as if flowers were blooming around them. A man and a girl are holding hands, their eyes full of trust and slight excitement. Mia laughs, enjoying the moment, and the man leads her in a dance, and everything around seems filled with light. They stop, the man says something, and the girl smiles gratefully. A special closeness arises between them. The heroine asks in surprise why her partner dances so well and receives an explanation about long practice. Dante admits with a slight smile that he was also inexperienced, but he trained a lot. In a comical flashback, the girl imagines him learning to dance with a robot, and she feels embarrassed. She laughs, imagining this funny sight, and her mood becomes even lighter. The man looks at the girl tenderly, admitting that these are not the most pleasant memories for him, but he is glad for her happiness. Mia looks at her partner with awe and a slight blush on her cheeks, feeling a special closeness. Dante, with a gentle smile, notes the beauty of the girl's eyes their gazes meet in the dance. The heroine looks at him with embarrassment and trepidation, her eyes shining with emotion. The man holds his gaze, his eyes reflecting sincerity and warmth. The girl is surprised to hear a compliment addressed to her, and her heart skips a beat. Dante looks down, a soft smile crossing his face. They continue to dance, surrounded by light and petals, enjoying the moment of intimacy. Mia stands in the rays of light, looking ahead in surprise and confusion, her cheeks slightly pink. She laughs shyly, turning away, and her heart starts to beat faster. Dante looks down at her with a soft smile, and she presses herself against his chest, feeling warmth and excitement. Her hand carefully touches his clothes, the thought flashing through her head that if this is not a joke, then everything is becoming serious. Mia looks down thoughtfully and a little anxiously, her face illuminated by a soft light and a slight blush. She is about to say something, but her words are interrupted by an unexpected movement as someone's hand approaches her face. A tall, blond man with glasses and a mysterious smile appears among a scattering of red roses, his gaze full of hidden meaning. Mia is surprised to find herself in the arms of another man, while the blond man watches from behind. The man gently touches the girl's gloved hand, expressing gratitude for her efforts. Suddenly, the man's hand squeezes her palm tightly, causing the girl to be surprised. Dante looks at the girl carefully, waiting for her answer, and she hesitates, trying to find the words. The hem of her dress trembles slightly as she hesitantly begins to explain her feelings. Al, smiling, draws the girl along with him, and she, surprised and slightly frightened, follows him down the hall. Mia, now in the distance, waves her hand, promising to explain everything later, and the man watches her from a distance. A silent thought appears on the man's lips, and he does not rush to answer. Al smiles reservedly, accepting the situation with understanding. In the center of the hall, amidst lights and music, a girl and a blonde man begin to dance, surrounded by other couples. The heroine, still a little embarrassed, holds the blonde man's hand, realizing how the atmosphere of the ball has captured her feelings. The girl and her partner continue to dance, and in her thoughts arises a disturbing question about Dante's feelings and the role of the real heroine. Suddenly she stops, her eyes wide with sudden realization and confusion. They continue to whirl in the dance, and the blonde looks tenderly at his companion. Mia looks around the hall with slight anxiety, thinking that she doesn't see here the one she expected to meet at the celebration. She notices that there is no one among the guests who reminds her of the mysterious heroine. Al notices her absent-mindedness with a slight smile, noticing the change in her mood. He leans towards the girl, their eyes meet, and a romantic moment ensues between them. He looks at her with a soft smile, while rose petals swirl around him. Mia, embarrassed and flushed, turns to her partner with a smile. In a comical scene, both characters discuss how the dance might have seemed boring, but the girl is quick to refute this. Suddenly, the man's heel hits the floor with force, creating a sense of surprise. Al, with joyful excitement, spins the girl around in a dance, and she reacts to this impulse with surprise and delight. The blonde man watches what is happening with a mysterious smile, his gaze full of confidence and slight playfulness. The heroine looks forward in surprise, her face illuminated by a soft light and slight embarrassment. In a comic moment, both heroes laugh and hug, feeling joy and lightness. They continue to dance in the hall, enjoying the music and the festive atmosphere. Mia laughs with delight as she dances with the boy in the blue suit, and he responds with surprise and excitement. In a whirlwind of joy, she spins around the hall, holding the hand of a knight in armor, and laughs happily, forgetting about everything. The girl in the green dress, slightly out of breath, smiles and remembers how fun the ball was. She approaches her group, where everyone is discussing what happened, and some of the boys go off to do their own thing. A blonde with a pink rose in her hair watches what is happening with a slight smile on her lips. Mia decides it's time to tell everyone she's coming home and heads towards the exit of the hall. She meets a stranger and greets her politely, a little embarrassed. The new acquaintance, beaming with a friendly smile, greets her and expresses joy at meeting her. Mia Fortuna, a little embarrassed, introduces herself, amazed by the attention of the beautiful girl. The girls discuss the dress, noting its comfort and simplicity of design. Mia is shyly pleased with the compliment she received. Suddenly, she is overcome with the suspicion that she might be being eavesdropped on even in the most private places. She recalls that private places like the toilet should be protected from strangers. When asked about the discomfort, Mia assures that everything is fine, hiding her true thoughts. Mia, with a forced smile, wonders if she is being bullied. The blonde, with a soft smile, notes to herself that her mistress is still far from secular rhetoric, deciding to interpret her words in her own way. Memories take Mia back to a time when she was considered cheerful and spectacular, and there was a knight and a red dragon nearby. Mia doubtfully thinks that she has clearly been overpraised, but in response she hears that she should be trusted. She suspects that someone is deliberately preventing her from making friends by burdening her with negativity. Inside herself, Mia promises that she will definitely find friends and will be proud of it. Mia, smiling shyly, responds with a compliment about her interlocutor's dress. Miss blushes and becomes nervous, feeling the sting in Mia's words. Mia is surprised to realize that her words could have hurt her interlocutor. The young lady lowers her head, feeling upset and unsure. Mia rushes to justify herself, explaining that she didn't mean to offend. Louise, slightly perked up, comments on Mia's good taste. The blonde asks Mia with interest about her origins, surprised by her unfamiliar surname. Mia admits that she is a commoner and is surprised at how she ended up in this place. Louise clarifies that Mia came as the general's partner and asks how they met. Mia replies that everything happened by the will of fate, thinking to herself about the strangeness of this meeting. The young lady angrily asks to speak directly if Mia does not want to answer, and doubts the meaning of her words. Mia insists that she is telling the truth, and her interlocutor eagerly awaits an explanation until the very end. The girl in the fluffy dress agrees with restraint, accepting the situation. Louise reproachfully says that if Mia continues to cheat, their paths will not cross again, and hastily apologizes. Mia is left alone in the luxurious room, at a loss for words. She is surprised to realize that the man she met for the first time already hated her. She is frightened by this attitude, although she understands that in secular society this is a kind of norm. Suddenly, Mia feels very tired and decides it's time to go home. At this time, a girl with purple hair appears behind the door, watching what is happening. An elegant girl in a light dress approaches Mia and greets her. Mia, a little confused, tries to find out who is in front of her. A woman with short purple hair and a confident smile appears in front of her, surrounded by a glow. Mia, embarrassed, admits that her interlocutor seems incredibly beautiful to her. The purple-haired lady accepts the compliment with a grateful smile. She apologizes for someone's tactlessness, but Mia hastens to assure that there is no need to apologize. Rubia, the lady is going to add something important to the conversation. She presses her hand to her chest with excitement, preparing for the request. Mia is surprised that they are asking her for a favor. The lady suggests discussing everything in the living room, showing politeness. Mia, a little embarrassed, asks if she's causing any inconvenience. Rubia smiles softly, assuring him that she didn't mean to disturb him. Mia panics when she realizes that she has made the beautiful lady feel awkward. She mentally asks Al for help if the situation suddenly gets out of control and receives a confident answer. Mia agrees to a short conversation, trying to appear friendly. Rubia smiles, expressing her joy at the agreement. Mia sits down opposite two elegant ladies in the living room, preparing to talk over tea. Louise, wearing a golden dress, introduces herself, stating her noble origins. Louise Lux of the Count's House of Lux apologizes for forgetting to introduce herself. Mia calls herself a commoner with a slight smile. The interlocutors assure that wisdom and an honest heart are more important to them than status. Mia accepts their words with surprise and feels relieved. She wonders why both ladies wanted to talk to her and recalls their first meeting. Mia recalls that it all started with a compliment about her comfortable dress. The heroine recalls that she simply thanked him for the compliment because the dress really was comfortable and nothing else happened. She begins to doubt whether her gratitude was perceived as mockery and internally worries that they do not believe her. In the luxurious hall, they discuss how difficult it is to be honest in high society and emphasize that this is precisely why they need Mia so much. Louise, in a golden dress, says that the three of them used to be friends, but after entering high society, everything changed. She admits that she wants to restore the former closeness with her friend, but does not know how to do it. Mia listens to their revelations with surprise and slight excitement. Louise looks at Mia with restraint as she prepares to say goodbye and leave. Mia, feeling awkward, apologizes and gets ready to leave the living room. Suddenly she is stopped, her hand is grabbed tightly and she is asked for help. Louise says in despair that only Mia can help them. Mia is confused when she remembers how one of the girls left upset and doesn't understand how she can now become her friend. Louise explains that Rubia is simply shy around new people, although she doesn't really believe it. The girl with golden hair wearily opens the door and asks a question. Looking around, she notices something unexpected and her gaze becomes wary. Two other girls, one with brown hair and one with purple hair, look at her in surprise. A girl in a pink dress comes down to them and asks what they are doing here. The chestnut-haired girl, a little embarrassed, explains that she was invited. The girl with roses in her hair asks in bewilderment since when commoners are allowed in here. Rubia, dressed in a blue dress, reflects on how friendship is more important to her than status. The girl with roses in her hair begins to make excuses, while her interlocutor in the green dress looks confused. Mia's inner voice tells her that the lady in pink is actually also a commoner. She wonders where this information came from, and in response hears that it is the devil's secret. A call to Lady Rubia is heard in the spacious hall. The heroine is surprised to realize that the lady in pink's invitation has a special meaning. Louise indignantly states that the invitation was not direct. She makes an embarrassed excuse, but a loud laugh is heard in response. All three girls turn around in surprise at the source of the noise. A man with long blonde hair and a friendly smile enters the room. The girls look at the new guest in confusion, not recognizing him. The arrival of Crown Princess Alexis is announced to those present, and everyone freezes in amazement. Mia looks at the Crown Princess with excitement, realizing her high status. The Crown Princess appears in a radiant light, making a strong impression on everyone present. She addresses the ladies in a friendly manner, inviting them to raise their heads, and the heroine is surprised by the unexpected meeting. The girl's inner voice ironically notes that the Crown Princess's name is too long. The Crown Princess explains that she overheard their conversation and notes the indomitable spirit of the girl in green. She smiles shyly, considering such praise too great an honor. The girl in the green dress is internally worried, noticing the crown princess's strange reaction to her answer and doubts whether she made a mistake. And he tries to mentally contact his assistants, but receives no answer and begins to panic. In desperation, she calls her friends, but silence reigns in the hall and no one answers. Her friend reminds her that the etiquette when addressing members of the royal family is to introduce oneself first. The girl, embarrassed, hurries to apologize and tells her name to the crown princess. The crown princess reacts to her apology with restraint, and the girl continues to bow her head. A mysterious and warm smile appears on the crown princess's face. Mia looks at the crown princess with surprise and admiration, sensing a special atmosphere between them. The heroine shyly thanks him for the honor, but is advised not to be so constrained. The crown princess admits with a smile that she doesn't like formalities, unless it's about tea. Mia perks up and smiles back. A friend with purple hair jokes that it's not etiquette that's important, but the tea, and laughs cheerfully. Two girls laugh at a successful joke, deciding to use it at the next tea ceremony. The crown princess turns to the girl in green, waiting for her answer, and she reacts with surprise. The heroine, gathering her courage, asks an unusual question, mentally convincing herself not to panic, because a real office worker doesn't get lost in difficult situations. The crown princess reacts to her words with surprise, not immediately understanding what she is talking about. A genuine smile appears on the crown princess's face, and she continues the conversation with interest. Mia, a little embarrassed, thanks you for your attention. The crown princess suddenly asks the girl if she will be at the hunting festival in 3 days, causing her slight confusion. The heroine wonders why she was invited to this event, comparing the invitation to a weekend trip. Two girls are discussing an invitation from the crown princess, and one of them feels she cannot refuse. Louise, in a luxurious dress, discreetly reminds us of the need to show our strength at the upcoming event. The two ladies are beaming with joy and confidence, their faces full of anticipation. Mia is embarrassed by the attention, but agrees to come, unable to withstand the general gaze. The crown princess promises to wait for guests. She turns and walks away calmly, leaving behind an atmosphere of anticipation. Black boots strode confidently across the marble floor, creating a sense of determination. The crown princess makes an unusual wish with a smile, causing confusion among the girls. The girls start laughing, trying to hide their confusion at the unexpected joke. One of the girls, sighing tiredly, dreams of returning home as soon as possible. Louise notices that now her friend is also forced to go to the hunting festival, although she doesn't want to at all. Mia is surprised to learn that the festival is not about hunting ordinary animals, but magical beasts. The girl in the yellow dress asks her interlocutor with a serious look whether she has any shooting experience, and she admits that she has only had a little sword training. Louise is surprised, thinking that even basic sword skills are already worthy of admiration, and her friend is confused. Mia is worried about whether her knowledge of the basics of fencing is sufficient to participate in the competition. All these decisions are not easy for the heroine, but she finds the strength not to despair. Her friend Rubia points out that such skill cannot be learned quickly and supports her doubts. The girls assure that they will not allow their friend to be in danger, urging her to trust them. Someone's hand extends in support, promising that they will be together. The other hand gently rests on top, confirming concern for Mia's friend. Two smiling girls raise a toast to their friendship against a backdrop of flowers. Mia looks at her friends with surprise and touching excitement. She, filled with emotion, tightly squeezes her friend's hands. In the luxurious hall, Mia stands a little confused, realizing the importance of what is happening. Dante, with a cold gaze, notices that the heroine is very late and asks the reason. The heroine tries to justify herself, and a man with long blonde hair appears next to her, addressing her in a friendly manner. Al wonders why he wasn't informed about what was happening. In a comical manner, he asks to see the earring to check why the connection was interrupted, and the girl hands him the jewelry. Dante recalls his meeting with Her Highness, lost in his thoughts. Al promises to fix the earring, and the girl thinks with anxiety about his extraordinary strength. The young man, with a serious look, asks the girl what the conversation with Her Highness was about. He thoughtfully clarifies what exactly seemed unusual to her about this meeting. The heroine recalls that her interlocutor's manner and jokes reminded her of a simple neighbor, and not of a person at court. Her gaze reflects a reflection on how people in power tend to believe in the illusion of well-being if everyone around them confirms it. She thinks with a smile about the young ladies she met at this reception. Dante admits that he also has a hard time tolerating such jokes, and the girl suggests that they leave quickly so as not to run into her again. Mia is surprised by the absence of Izzy and Killian, remembering that they left to do their own thing. At this time, Ezekiel and the knight in armor stand in front of the crown princess, waiting for her words. The crown princess reminds him of her previous order, her gaze becoming serious. The young man and the knight are silent, not knowing what to answer to her question. Ezekiel, looking down, admits that he remembers the order.